people present than are listed, if that matters.
Okay. Anyone else?
Does that matter?
It's not required that we have people that, it's good to list everybody who was there. Sometimes people come, we don't know their names.
Okay, motion is made and seconded, it's on the floor. All those in favor would vote by voice, please.
Ben, aye.
Susan Hammond, aye.
Gaetano, aye.
Peter Golick, aye.
Stephen Golick, aye.
Motion carries. Public comment on items not on the agenda. You've got 3 minutes. Seeing or hearing none, we'll move on down to the next item, which is the manager's report.
Okay, and this will be a pretty quick report. I just want to let people know we're trying something new with the video so that you may see mostly the agenda and a small screen of people. Is that where we're on now? And we'll switch back and forth between those. So the purpose is so that the people at home get the advantage of reading the materials while the board is looking at them. So we'll have the next rental property owners meeting, that's series. It'll be February 12th from noon to 1:30, and everyone's welcome. We invite people to bring their lunch. We have a little bit of refreshments if people don't bring lunch. And we're going to be talking more or hearing more from the U.S. Attorney on how to minimize drug activity in rentals. There was a good response from the landlords last time, so we're going to expand on that. Snow removal downtown this evening at all the usual places, all the lots, Atkinson Street, Henry Street, all the places that you should not be parking at in the winter. And I had a quick meeting today that was interesting I want to let you know about with Mike and Sue Smith. They're going to be making a video to apply to be included in an HGTV program called Hometown Takeover. So you might see that happening later on this week. The deadline is pretty soon. And they're going to be seeing if the town and the village can be entered in a contest that's for small towns where the HGTV folks come in and work on the older buildings. So I thought it was an interesting idea. So that's all I have.
Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll get right down to the agenda, and the first item is the current.
Thanks for having us.
Okay.
Thank you for putting us on right off the bat. At the town meetings, we always like to indicate that we're going to come back and report back to the select board. So we're just kind of giving everybody an update of how last year went in FY19. We worked for the last 18 months on redesigning routes in Springfield and Bellows Falls, and on all the buses that leave downtown Bellows Falls and go to Brattleboro and Ludlow and up into the Dartmouth College Hospital area. And last year, in your packet, you'll see some updates on the ridership. So 17 months ago, we started outreach and public hearings to redesign the routes, and then we implemented the new schedules last year, about a year ago, and eliminated all the fares on every route. And we're seeing about a 22% increase in ridership, which is really good. One of the other things that I discussed at the town meeting last year is we're starting a new transit app, and it's called Transit, and everyone can download it on their phone. It's active, so you can see where the bus is when it's going to arrive at your stop or head to your destination next. So it really alleviates a lot of confusion for people with where the bus is. A big part of why we wanted to come in tonight was to kind of explain to everybody what we're doing for the next outreach. And years ago, you know that the Current merged with the Mover. And the Mover is our sister company over in Wilmington, and that's cow-spotted buses, black and white with a red Mover logo. And part of that design, that idea of the consolidation was eventually would merge into ones who were more uniform. What we've decided to do this fall, the board voted to start transitioning our current Swish into mover spots. And so what we're trying to do tonight is the start of some outreach. We'll be putting some advertising in the paper, and we'll be doing some social media blurbs. But the idea is to make the company more uniform. The mover logo is widely promoted in the region, and it's touted as a very successful brand. And one of the other things that we're looking at for the necessity of doing this is to eliminate confusion. We have a lot of buses at our access over in the mover territory, which is over in Wilmington by Mount Snow. And with mover and current Swish, it's hard to share those buses because it creates confusion. We're going to eliminate that confusion and be able to utilize a fleet of 24 buses in the summer or in the fall and the spring when they're not being utilized over at Mount Snow. So that will help kind of spread the fleet out over the two divisions. And the brand is just something that the board was really encouraging us to blend into the current system. So we're going to be starting de-striping and spotting some of our buses. We're going to start down in Brattleboro. We have 3 new buses that need to be decaled anyway, so we're going to start with a mover logo down there. And then we'll eventually work our way up to Bellows Falls, Springfield, and up into the White River Junction area into Dartmouth. All of this is done with existing capital funds and then additional funds that we'll get next year in our grant request. So we're not coming to the town asking for more money or anything like that. These are funds that are already been apportioned to our budget for this year and next year. So this is the first public outreach and information session that we're having. Brattleboro Randy, the CEO, is down at Brattleboro board meeting tonight and explaining that to them. So we just wanted to kind of let everyone know, so when they start to see cow-spotted buses come into town, they're going to know it's the current. There's a lot of work we have to do with switching over the brochures, changing the uniforms, changing the street signs, switching up the website so it has the mover brand, changing the Facebook page, and that could take anywhere from 3 months to 6 to 12 months to kind of ease into that. So I just wanted to bring everyone up to date, and I'm here if you have questions about that.
Any questions?
No, you're saying that you no longer charge a fee then?
We haven't charged a fee in 17 months. We went fare free.
Okay.
We went fare free on the local in-town routes.
Right.
The only routes we charge are on the 53, and that's the one that goes from Bellows Falls to Brattleboro. That's $1.
Mhm.
In-town Brattleboro is $1, and to get from here to Dartmouth is $2.
Now is Brattleboro, they're still charging down there on that?
We are, yeah, they are. And Brattleboro contributes $50,000 to the company to support public transit down there.
Mhm. Okay.
Anyone else? Hearing none. Thank you, Beck.
Thank you.
Second item on the agenda is the Public Works Finance and Maintenance Agreement for the New Arch Bridge. It's in your packet. Eric, you want to take the lead on this?
Sure, this is the agreement for the work that you did a presentation on about maybe 2-3 months ago. State of Vermont came down here, the New Hampshire guys, I think. It's the deck renovation and all the work we're going to be doing, so I've looked through it, it's no cost to the town, it's 80% federal, 20% state. So it's work that, it's an agreement that needs to be signed so we can get it back to the state, they can proceed forward on it.
And this does not address the issue of the streetlights, because that's something we would need to talk to New Hampshire about, and this is an agreement with Vermont, state of Vermont. I mean, that was the one issue that was outstanding.
Well, it's a matter of cost of streetlights too, it's pretty minimal. We did run the numbers on that.
Yeah.
What is ours? Yeah.
Right. But this agreement doesn't specifically address that, I don't think.
They're coming back, New Hampshire DOT,
No, I don't believe
before
so.
this starts, because there was some questions about, I had concerns about traffic on this side of the bridge during the construction. And I thought they said they would do a traffic study or look and have an answer about that.
We could ask them to come back, or I could ask them to answer the question.
We should all know.
That was the question.
Yeah,
We need all of that one. We did.
yeah, it was the routing, that was your question, right?
Perhaps some kind of traffic control on this side of the river when we're switching lanes and someone is in the center lane taking a left. It could be confusing. It's kind of confusing now.
Yes. What happened was they came to the town, and then after that meeting, they came to the village, and they did say that they would handle that at the village meeting. I don't know if you remember. Or you still. But we can confirm that for you.
Item 22 on this thing is hazardous material contamination. Don't anticipate anything, but they say if there's anything found, that the municipality picks it up.
I wouldn't expect it, they're not really digging, you know. So
It's
that's a
concerning to me.
It's a concern, but that's a typical thing they're always gonna put in there. It's on the
You know,
town,
if they found
it's
any
have
kind
right
of
away.
thing together, but, I mean, put it in, but
Yeah,
it just, when it states in there that the municipality could be on the hook,
right.
just raises the question. Anyone else got any questions on this?
Yeah, item number 13, sidewalk maintenance, ice and snow removal. Mentions 19 VSA reference to Vermont. But who's the one that takes care of the sidewalk on that bridge now?
We do.
We do.
We've got an agreement somewhere that we will take care of it.
Really?
An old agreement, yeah, we just had it up a long ago, we were looking at it.
Yeah.
I was looking at it with somebody.
So, North Walpole doesn't plow that
Well,
out?
they do if we don't get there,
No,
but.
I'm just curious, I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
generally North Walpole, I don't know this for a fact, but they don't do their sidewalks till after the storm.
Yeah.
You might do Walpole Village, but I don't ever see them in North Walpole until after the storm. So, there's a lot of traffic over that bridge in the day.
Yeah,
so
I just wanted
think
to-
that's,
Problem with that, but we don't receive any compensation for that. So that brings me back to highlighting maybe on the streetlights that it should be the town of Walpole's obligation. And we take care of what's over here on this side, one street light.
I move approval of contract number FM0362 with the state of Vermont, subject to attorney review, and authorize the chair to sign the agreement.
Here, a second.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, voice vote again. All those in favor of approving the finance and maintenance agreement with the Norwich Bridge would say aye. Susan?
Susan, aye.
Ben, aye.
Gaetano, aye.
Peter, aye.
Stefan, aye.
Motion carried. Wireless bridge letter.
Yes, and this is the letter that was drafted by the town of Walpole, and this was a result of the joint board meeting that you had, the select board had with the select board of Walpole. And the village has already signed it. The copy you have doesn't show the village signatures, but the village, Bellas Falls trustees have already signed it. And we're recommending that the select board also sign it so that we can show a united front.
And I'll make the motion, the Rockingham Select Board authorizes and sign the letter to the governor of New Hampshire and the governor of Vermont. Reference same as the Walpole Select Board and the Bellas Falls trustees that have already signed.
Second.
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 Motion being seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, voice vote again. All those in favor would say aye. Susan?
Susan Hammond, aye.
Ben, aye.
Gaetano, aye.
Peter, aye.
Stefan, aye.
Motion passes. Item C, land lease agreement for Sonat.
Yes, and this is the agreement, he was here at the last meeting. It was previously a 3-year agreement, and the board considered making it a 1-year agreement. He really needs it to be a 3-year agreement to make it work financially. We did restrict it to pay only, which was one of the concerns of the cemetery sexton. So staff is recommending the 3-year term.
And how about the concern about the, whatever, if any pesticide would be used, that it's not a problem with, in the event we had to implement something. Remember that was a concern at the last meeting? And a concern, I believe, would be Sexton also.
The Sexton is fine with the agreement the way it is. I think we said they fertilize the fields annually.
Right, that is in here, but it was,
Yeah.
the question was, if that dirt was used somewhere else, grass probably would not grow very well in there, in that dirt.
Yeah, I'm sorry, we didn't change it for that
Okay.
purpose. I mean, we could amend it
Well,
or,
I mean, it looks like there's, from my understanding, and talked with him, that it may be a bit before we need space. Whether or not it would be 3 years, I don't know, but
before we need space for cemetery.
for a cemetery.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
yes, we have plenty of time. Yeah, Sexton's not concerned
So,
about that.
otherwise, I don't have any issues or hold up on it.
Move to approve the lease of land with Donald Sinet for a 3-year term and authorize manager to sign the lease.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to approve the lease agreement for 3 years with Senat. Any further comments, questions? Hearing none, all those in favor would say aye by voice vote, please. Susan?
Susan Hammond,
Ben, aye.
Guy Donald, aye.
Peter Golick, aye.
Step on, aye.
Motion passes. Item number 3 on the agenda is Development Office, Windsor Housing Trust, PCDB, CDBG grant.
Right, a lot of letters.
Is anyone not signed the
Alphabet
public
soup, folks.
hearing?
Yeah, but Gary has a sign-in sheet for the public hearing
Right,
portion.
we'll be
You guys
hearing,
might just-
I'll read the script here while everybody's passing that around. Officially opening the public hearing in Town of Rockingham is considering filing application to the state of Vermont for an implementation grant under Vermont Community Development Program, BCDP, to sub-grant to the Wyndham and Windsor Housing Trust. This public hearing is being held to obtain the views of citizens on community development, to furnish information concerning the amount of funds available and the range of community development activities that may be undertaken under this program, the impact on historic and archaeological resources that may be affected by proposed project, and to give affected citizens the opportunity to examine the proposed statement of projected use of these funds. The proposal is to apply for $450,000 BCDB Community Development Block Grant funds, which will be used to accomplish the following activities: construction of 26 new apartments at 115 Rockingham Street. That's the old Bells Falls Garage, in case anybody's not familiar with the address. The select board will not make any decision during the hearing. We will reserve our deliberations until the regular meeting resumes after the public hearing. As the chair, I will close the hearing once we have received all available testimony and then convene the regular meeting. I encourage all hearing participants to participate at this meeting and now open the floor to comment. So, folks,
Thank you. Thank you for that introduction, and thank you for holding this public hearing. As Peter said, we're here to request the town sponsor a community development block grant through the Vermont Community Development Program for the redevelopment of the Bellows Falls Garage at 115 Rockingham Street. I'll start off with a summary of the project, and then we'll give an update on where we are in the development and talk about some of the benefits to the project. So the redevelopment of 115 Rockingham Street will create 26 mixed-income apartments in downtown Bellows Falls. By providing a mixed-use building and residential opportunities in a walkable community, this project will meet several goals in the Rockingham Town Plan, as well as the goals in the designated downtown program. Redevelopment will include a complete exterior renovation, including insulation, or what we're calling outsolation, because the building will be wrapped, new cement cladding, and new windows to blend into the historic industrial aesthetic of the building. We're using the building's original design to inform the redevelopment design, and in many ways, we think the building will look a lot of what it looked like in the 1920s. So it won't be changed dramatically on the exterior. Interior work will prioritize energy efficiency, indoor air quality, and accessibility. This will also be a mixed-use building. It'll have 26 apartments one community space on the top floor with an outdoor terrace, and one commercial space on Rockingham Street. It'll be a mixed income building, and the income qualification ranges from $15,000 at the low end for a single person to $79,500 for a family of 3 on the high end. Rent levels will be set to serve a variety of folks in the community, and we anticipate seniors being attracted to living at the Bellows Falls Garage. And we just built a building in downtown Brattleboro, and half the population that moved there are folks over 65 years old. It's a growing demographic, and we're finding that that's often who's applying for housing. We also anticipate some young professionals who might be interested in an affordable place to live while they're saving for a down payment to purchase their own house. So we feel this new housing option will provide high quality housing for people that both live in the community and who may want to move into the community.
So as a project update, we are currently in the middle of applying for our financing and our funding. We've received positive feedback from both state funders and private equity investors. So we feel very good about the project going forward. We expect to have all funding secured by April of this year. We are currently working with our architects to finalize our designs. You can see there were some updated renderings in your packet. And we're currently going through the DRB process. Our final hearing is scheduled for February 12th.
So we want to talk about some of the benefits, we've talked a little bit about the benefits for residents for high quality housing at a good solid rents, but we wanted to point out some benefits to the town as well. So we all know that this is an extremely visible building at the north entrance to the village. It's in pretty rough shape, to put it mildly. And so removing a blighted building from the north entrance to the village will really promote some of the economic vitality of the village that's already happening over the last 20 years. And we're really excited to contribute to that. We feel like this project will meet some of the town's planning goals. We looked over the town plan recently and noted that, and we found this to be true as we were looking to invest here in Bellows Falls, that it's very difficult to find feasible projects in the village neighborhoods because of the dense development pattern that already exists there, the limited parking opportunities, and it's hard to find something of this scale that is attractive to funders and investors and is financially feasible. So to meet some of the goals of both revitalizing downtown through mixed use and adding new high quality housing to the Bellows Falls and Rockingham inventory, we feel like this project will do a nice job to achieve those goals.
Also, in terms of benefits to the town, we're pretty excited about the financial benefits. The property will generate between $28,000 and $30,000 in property taxes. And if you equalize that with all the other properties in town on a per acre basis, the building itself will be the most productive building in the town, most productive non-industrial building in the town of Rockingham. The hydroelectric plant is quite valuable, but it will be the most productive plant, and we kind of have a chart showing that. So if you just look at all the property values in downtown, or not only in downtown, but in the rest of the town, in Saxons River, and the rest of the town of Rockingham, and you just compare their taxes divided by the acreage of the lot. So this is the board. You can see clearly this is just kind of shows the benefits to downtown redevelopment. You can clearly see where your downtown is. You can also see where Saxons River is. But if you look here, you can we have 51 squares, this yellow line here, which is a very productive property. We have 45 Rockingham right here, which is the Canal House, pretty productive property as well. But on a 0.16 acre lot, $30,000 in taxes is very, very productive when you're looking at it on an equalized basis. Additionally, that number represents about a 1,000% increase in the assessed value of the property from what it is right now. It's assessed right now at around $84,000, and our assessed value will be around $871,000. This puts it in the top 30 properties in town in terms of assessed value. That includes some large land holdings, and it doesn't take into account any current use deductions. It includes some churches and educational facilities. So this is will be a very productive building for the town in terms of tax revenue. And then our market research shows that 1 or 2 person households, the demand is very strong in those categories. And 22 out of 26 apartments will be either efficiencies or 1 bedroom. So when you look at the impact on the school system, there's the potential for some families to move in here with school-age children. There are 4 2-bedroom apartments. There could potentially be up to 4 students, but that wouldn't be an increase on the school budget. But it would be an increase in the taxes going to the school, so your per pupil spending will actually go down in that case. So that's a big benefit to the school district as well. Additionally, Stewart Property Management will be managing this building for us. They've received accolades from town officials, the health officer, and town management about their management of the physical infrastructure of the building, as well as their tenant relations and tenant selection policies. So we feel that adding to their portfolio in Rockingham is a great way to strengthen the housing options in the town of Rockingham.
We also wanted to talk about the cost to the town of approving and sponsoring this grant, and it's basically minimal. It would be some of Wendy's time, and we've worked with the town of Rockingham in the past. Actually, you've sponsored our home repair program years ago. And so there's a bit of back and forth when reports are due and some administrative functions. It's fairly minimal. However, in the budget, we've allocated $10,000 for administrative costs, so it would cover any of Wendy's time. And in addition, because of these funds, the town would be subject to an audit. I believe based on some of the other funds that the town is already receiving, you're already subject to that audit. And so this would be a nice contributor to those costs that are already on your plate. And so that's another nice benefit to moving forward with this request. And then finally, we just wanted to talk a little bit about the fact that these are federal tax dollars, so every resident in Rockingham is already contributing to this pot of money, and there's very few opportunities to bring federal money directly back into town. And the Community Development Block Grant is one way to bring your dollars back into the community where you live. And so it's a nice benefit to have a Community Development Block Grant. And we calculated that it's likely that each individual taxpayer is, depending on what their income is paying between $2 and $10 a year. And this grant would bring $450,000 of federal tax money back into the community. So it's about $110 per taxpayer. So we're leveraging your tax dollars locally in a way that hopefully will really benefit both the residents that will live in the Bellas Falls Garage, but also to the village and the taxpayers in general. Wanted a quote from the town plan, which I thought was really apropos given what we're trying to accomplish. This is right out of your town plan. A vibrant downtown Bellas Falls is critical for the future of Rockingham. The downtown needs to be many things to many people, serving the greatest constituency of people to maximize the use of our built environment. As most New England communities have learned to appreciate, the best balance for a vibrant downtown is to promote the mixture of residential and commercial uses. So we hope that you'll agree that this project will result in widespread benefit both to the residents who will live there, to the vibrancy of the village that will benefit from the transformation of this highly blighted property, and in addition to new commercial space, and to the town of Rockingham itself through the increased tax revenues. That concludes our presentation, but we're happy to answer any questions that you have.
So you mentioned some occupancy in Brattleboro. Were you finding that the majority of them were Brattleboro residents? And you're looking at, I think you mentioned 65 and older.
Yeah, about I don't have that. No, I don't have that statistic, but I could get back to you on that.
Yeah,
we
curious.
do know because we just rented it up, and it rented in 6 weeks, which was pretty rapid.
Yeah.
And half the residents were over 65. The average age of that segment of folks that moved in was 71. The majority of the rest of the residents, the average age was 45. So we're seeing the demographics that we're seeing all over New England playing out in the housing that we're building.
Your plans, I think, in your presentations along discussed something about retail space on the ground floor.
Yeah.
That being said, do you anticipate people that are renting in downtown now perhaps moving to that space?
We don't know because it's so
I'm just
far
saying,
out.
I'm just thinking that we're gonna create empty,
Yeah, that's a really good
storefronts here
question.
versus new building and all that type of aspect.
I think, we did reach out to the Downtown Business Alliance when we were doing the design, and one of the questions we asked was, what kind of non-residential space would you like to see at that end of the village? And the zoning bylaws don't require us to do non-residential space, but it is sitting right up on the sidewalk there, so it just doesn't make sense, I think, to have a residential space so close to the sidewalk. And what we heard from folks was that they would like to see retail space there because I think one person put it, having an open flag in front of a retail space right at the entrance of the village is a signal, come down this road, we're open for business, and that would be a really welcoming experience for visitors coming into town. So I didn't get the sense that people wanted to move, but they saw it as a way to welcome and invite people to come into the village instead of bypass it.
And the space will be sized appropriately. We also have our commercial spaces on the Exeter block and Howard block, which are, Stewart Property Management is pretty confident that they would be able to rent this as well without cannibalizing our own commercial spaces. So, we coordinated with them, and we think the size and the location are good, and there's an excess demand for it.
Yeah, parking could be an issue back there with the private lot across the street, so that might hinder somebody attempting to move out of downtown where there's public parking places too.
Yeah.
So I just thought I'd throw that question out. Anyone else on the board have any questions?
Sure, I got one question.
Right.
It's kind of not relevant to this grant application, but going back to that, you said you got positive feedback and you kind of feel like you're going to get this grant, you're counting on this, you're going to be funded by April, you said, but you haven't applied for this one.
We have not applied for this. So our largest source of funding is private equity through investment in a tax credit program, and they're kind of the main driver. Everyone kind of looks to that program to see how you do in that realm if you get funding through that, and they. I'm trying the right words here, but they look to that to kind of inform their decisions and see that. And in that program, with the Vermont Housing Finance Agency, we have a very competitive application, and we already have an interested investor. So with that in mind, we will apply. And so we've talked with VCDP too, and we've said it's a great application. And the VCDP meeting is actually after that tax credit meeting. So just based on the feedback we've heard from VCDP, from the Vermont Housing Finance Agency, and from the Vermont Housing Conservation Board, we feel very positive. This is a good project.
I wanted to just add, we also bring folks down to look at the building, and so all of the funders that Pete just mentioned, with I think the exception of the tax credit funder, have been down here and toured the building and walked around the village, and so when they see our application in writing, they have a sense of where it's located, what it looks like, what kind of impact it'll have on the town. And as one funder said after touring the building, "Oh, we got to get this one done." That was a direct quote. Now, that doesn't make the decision, but it's a signal of how exciting the project is when folks come down and look at it, because they know what kind of impact it's going to have.
And then just these sketches here, this is your finalized. I remember discussion. Is this you're going up another floor, or you're not? Right?
Yeah. So the you can see that it's.
I can't read the key.
Right, it's a little small, yeah. And on the screen, it's a little dark on there too. But yes, that is one floor. The fire chief signed off on that.
Okay.
So
I remember in your earlier discussion, I think the architect said he would hang a balloon. Remember? To see.
Oh, to see the visual. Yeah, that's possible. Yeah.
So it's going up 12 feet or something.
1 floor. So yeah, probably about 12 feet. when all's said and done.
And that's like an open concept area on Rockingham Street front?
So, correct, on the south side of the building. So you have the community room and then an open air terrace off of that.
Yeah, that was an interesting point of discussion, because when we did that, we had a few community meetings and you had attended those, so I appreciate that you got a chance to be a part of that. We had talked about maybe a terrace in the back and of course overlooking a beautiful fall mountain and the canal, and that was really exciting. And then, but the other consideration for having the terrace in the front was to give a sense of liveliness right on the street and a sense of that end of the village being a public space. And
Front porch capital of the world.
Exactly.
yeah, and the architect, when he pointed that out to me, because when we saw the second renderings and he had the terrace on the front, I thought, oh, what about on the back? And he really made a strong case for having some sense of movement and aliveness out on the street as a way of creating vibrancy in the village. And then it also made sense in terms of the apartment configuration too. For those reasons, we did it on the front of the building.
People like the people watch.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
It's a good way to slide down on. Okay, the public, does anybody in the public have any comments they'd like to throw out? Debbie?
I only have one concern. Well, you already brought up parking, which of course, I anticipate there won't be any parking spaces marked out on that side of Canal Street going up the hill. That won't change. There's no parking right now from the stop sign back heading north on Canal. The other part was only concerns of additional burdens on our services, such as police, fire, that sort of thing, the ambulance. Those are my only concerns with adding some 26 to 40 people, I'm estimating based upon the numbers you just gave, inside the building, and whether we would have any additional service issues like we do with some of the larger apartment buildings we currently have. For instance, the one I live next to and that sort of thing. That's my only concern, is the additional burden on the village services. Thank you. That's it.
So as far as parking, we will have some underground parking in the building, and through the DRB process, we're looking at providing the rest of our parking either through the municipal system or private partnerships, which is allowed per the zoning. But we do have the zoning requirement to go through as well to make sure there's adequate parking provided. As far as services go, the building will be fully sprinklered. So as far as in the horrible, unfortunate event of something happening there, we do have that. I also checked in with both the health officer and with Stewart Property Management on issues around our other properties in town. And I think this goes to Stewart Property Management's commitment to tenant relations and tenant selection. So the health officer stated that in his memory there have been no issues on any Stewart Property Managed buildings in Rockingham. And then Stewart Property Management said in terms of police calls, especially is what I asked specifically, she was not aware of any. Not to say that there aren't any, but that in terms of it being an ongoing issue of police showing up every week or anything, that's something that Stewart Property Management would have been made aware of, and she just wasn't aware of really any instance. So we don't anticipate, obviously when you have 26 people, there will potentially be ambulances and things like that, but we don't anticipate anything out of the ordinary, especially with some, a lot of residents will be coming from the town of Rockingham regardless. So.
Sue, do you have any comments or questions?
No, I'm all set, thank you. Very informative.
Back to Gaetano.
One more. Yep. The lot next door, that was an option back.
88 Canal. No, it's an option. We don't want to obviously make any decisions on that until we close on this property, but no, we're in active talks with that owner.
Anyone in the public have any comments before I close the hearing? Seeing none, public hearing is now formally closed, and we will continue with the regular meeting of the Town of Rockingham Select Board. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for bringing that in. There's this motion, if one wishes to make it.
I move to approve the resolution sponsoring the application for CDBG funding to the Vermont Community Development Program and authorize the select board members to sign the resolution.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, we'll take a voice vote. All those in favor of approving the application would say aye. Sue? Sue?
Susan, I.
Ben, aye.
Gaetano, aye.
Peter, aye.
Stefan, aye.
Motion passes. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Item number 4, appointments. Your appointments to a couple of committees, commissions. First one will be for the Conservation Committee. Chuck, you want to
Chuck is here to speak to
speak to
that.
that?
The Conservation Commission?
Yeah. It's pretty much explanatory here, but I didn't know if you want to.
I have nothing else to add.
Well, maybe just for the public, we're requesting that Laurel Green be appointed to the Conservation Commission for state mandated term of 4 years. And then you have information from her here.
I move to approve Laurel Green to the Rockingham Conservation Commission.
Second.
Which is made and seconded to appoint Laurel Green to the Conservation Commission. Any further comments, questions? Sue, you all set?
All set. Susan Hammond? Oh,
Okay, all those in favor would say aye. Now you can go.
okay, Susan Hammond, I.
Ben, aye.
Gaetano, aye.
Peter Golick, aye.
Stefan Golick, aye.
Motion passes on Conservation Committee. Commission.
Okay, and the next one is, we're,
Safety officers.
Right, we're-
Nuisance ordinance enforcement, there was a problem with the date of the application when we voted the last meeting. So what we're gonna do is rescind that previous motion and correct it with the correct dates. So, do you have any comments? Chuck? Wendy?
I just do want to mention, the ordinance allows for up to 5 officers. We're proposing 2 at this point. We're going to proceed very carefully with the enforcement. It's a new ordinance. We want to make sure we don't go too fast. And also, we should call them code enforcement officers. So if you could just say safety officers, code enforcement officer, or safety/code enforcement officers at this point, then we'll make that formal change later on. And then we provided just a updated spreadsheet so that you could see, or rather flow chart, so you can see again the process of the nuisance ordinance. And it is complaint driven, so that we won't be driving around looking for issues. We will be responding to complaints from other property owners or residents.
Okay, there is a suggested motion if someone wants to make it. This will be for the appointment of
I move we appoint Sean McGinnis and Chuck Wise as safety/code enforcement officers, duly charged with enforcing the nuisance, blighted, unsound, or abandoned property ordinance.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. Voice vote again. All those in favor would say aye. Sue?
Susan, I.
Ben, aye.
Gaetano, aye.
Peter Golick, aye.
Stefan, aye.
You have your safety enforcement officers.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Next is the Development Review Board, and our first item would be to rescind the previous motions, and then we'll make the new motion for the new ones.
Okay, I'll make the motion, the Rockingham Select Board rescind the previous made motion reference to DRB.
Second.
Okay. Think people moved, made, seconded the motion, so we're good there. Any further discussion? Hearing none, voice vote again. All those in favor to rescind the motion previously made from January 1st, 2010 to December 30, 2023 would say aye. Sue?
Susan Hammond, I.
Ben, aye.
Gaetano, aye.
Peter, aye.
Stefan, aye.
Okay, now we'll move to the new suggested motion. Someone wants to make a suggested motion here for the new one?
I move we appoint Kath Martin and Thaddeus Guile to serve on the Development Review Board and effective January 21st, 2020 through December 1st, 2023.
Seconded.
Motion is made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor would vote aye by voice, please. Sue?
Susan Hammond, aye.
Ben, aye.
Guy Donald, aye.
Peter Dollar, aye.
Stephen Dolig, aye.
Motion passes. You're pretty well set.
Thank you.
Okay, now comes the fun part of the meeting. Budget time, finance.
Okay,
Item 5.
it's always the fun part, right? Well,
You're welcome to stay if you want.
you've met 6 times already. This will be the 7th meeting on the budget. And what you have now is the proposed budget that reflects the changes directed in those meetings. The proposed expenditures are $6,334,899, which is a 1.2% increase, of which $5,129 or $129,704 would be billed through property taxes. We gave you an updated property tax sheet, which actually we could put that up. Or actually, we can wait on this because I'll go through this. So we're projecting no increase, or for this calculation, we're assuming no increase in the grand list, although we do expect a small increase. So at a 0 increase in grand list, the town tax rate would be 1.099, which is a 2.12 cent increase from last year. It's a 1.5 cent increase from 2019. We did have a decrease last year in the tax rate. A 2.12 cent increase equates to $21.20 per $100,000 of value per year, or about $5 per quarter. And it's important to note there's no use of fund balance of either the highway or the general fund, because last year, if you recall, we did use fund balance. So we detailed the increases or changes in the general fund, which I can go through that if you like, or
Wasn't there some talk in an article using some of the money from the fund balance for highway?
And we'll get to that
Yeah.
for Hyde Hill.
Right.
But the budget as proposed does not include fund balance, and last year and the year before it did. That's on the, Shannon, if you could go to this.
That budget does not take into account if any of these articles are implemented?
No, the articles are separate, which is
Right,
how we
so-
traditionally do it. But I think what we should do, actually, is when we describe the articles at town meeting, we ought to describe it in terms of cents. We didn't do that last year. That's one of the reasons the fire truck numbers hit us so hard when we didn't get the grant. We weren't planning for that amount of increase, because even though folks voted for it, we still had to account for it in the budget. And so that's the suggestion I would make for town meeting, is that we'd be much more clear about the impact of those votes.
Well, we could, but I think typically folks know the amount of 1 cent increase, especially those that attend the meeting. In fact, I'm pretty sure we would have announced it in the discussion.
Well, we didn't do it for the articles.
Okay.
But in any event, what I said, the use of fund balance is the column on the right. And so last year and the previous year, fund balance was used. And that was appropriate. We had sufficient fund balance. We had more than we needed. So it didn't make sense to keep those balances high when they could be used to reduce taxes. But we did wean off of it. So we went from 100,000 the year before to 50,000 last year. So there you can see the history of the tax rate. So I can go through the major changes, if you like. What's your pleasure? Or, I'll just,
Have any questions
I'll
on the
just
budget as
rattle along.
proposed? Does anyone want to contribute any further changes to the budget?
Well, the one outstanding, you want me to go talk about the one outstanding item is the Public Works Director position. We did look at this more specifically, because it was being discussed. Staff does not recommend deleting this position. The total cost is $119,500 or an hourly rate of just under $60. And for many reasons, staff believes that eliminating this position would cost more than it would save and would likely result in a reduction in services to residents and businesses of the town. It's not a requirement of the position that the Public Works Director be a civil engineer, but our director is. And we've received a lot of savings by virtue of him being able to sign and design, especially obviously roadways and culverts. The largest single example of this is the Burt Blake and Park Street project. That was a village project, still is a village project, installing new water and sewer on Burt Blake and Park Streets. They were upgrading the town decided in 2018 to use that opportunity to upgrade the roadway and improve the sidewalks and curbing in some cases. So the town paid the difference between what the village would have been required to do and the expanded work. And this way the town received a tremendous discount on a project that was planned for the future. So, and because Everett's a licensed engineer and because he's familiar with the runoff patterns on those streets, he was able to prepare specifications and elevations for gravel base, additional depth of paving, and improved stormwater facilities. We estimate the cost to the town of that project, the incremental cost, to be $330,000. We don't know yet because the project isn't complete. It's in its winter break. So, but we're pretty confident it'll be that or lower. And that's almost $200,000 savings versus the planned $515,000 scheduled for that project 7 years later. So not only did the residents and property owners of those streets have an improved road and better stormwater for much less cost, but they had it 7 years earlier than they would have. And I definitely expect to see an increase in the grand list because of that project. And then just general data, you asked to know what outside engineers cost, generally from $100 to $130 an hour versus $60 for the in-house position. During the 4 years plus when the town contracted with Hammond Engineering at a lower rate of $70 to $80, so the rate was already discounted, the costs were $106,000 per year, and that wasn't full-time engineering, that was part-time engineering. So it's $106,000 per year is what we paid. So we would pay more than that to another outside engineer. Other town staff, primarily the highway superintendent, the finance director, and me, would be picking up the work that is done now. Those staff range from $49 to $53 an hour, so there wouldn't be significant savings, and in fact, it would just slow us down. We're concerned that would be a project or a problem. So the projects next year include the new arch bridge maintenance, hopefully Hyde Hill drainage if it's
New arch
supported.
bridge maintenance?
I'm sorry?
What is new arch bridge maintenance?
The new arch bridge maintenance project that we just talked about, the public works director would be coordinating that.
Engineer service needed for that?
No, it's coordination.
But you don't need engineer service for that?
No, for many of for much of the work of the public works director, and it's not required that the public
I'm
works
just
director be
asking.
an engineer.
I'm asking a question because you're referencing how much it costs for outside engineering.
Yes.
So,
Yes, and that's a separate, that would not require, I mean, engineering wouldn't hurt, but it wouldn't require that.
good.
Hyde Hill drainage, there already has been some engineering in that work. So some of that would be engineering, some of it would just be normal public works director work. Depot Street Bridge coordination, we've started that work already.
That's not, there's no engineering services.
It's not engineering,
Okay.
but it's important,
Okay.
public works director work. And then
You're referencing engineer costs a minute ago, so.
right, so I moved on to just general public works director.
Mhm.
So design of the Depot Street Bridge, that's V-Transit's coordination, so we were just talking about, there's a lot of utility coordination, roadway coordination. Somebody has to handle that for the town. So there's no director, it would, again, be probably Mike or me. And then the drainage work and paving of Griswold Drive and the adjacent streets. That will involve some engineering, stormwater and roadway.
What year is that?
Next year. It's planned to be next year. So if you want to look on the, a couple pages back, there's a page with pink drawings that shows you what we did this year. 2 pages, one is the town as a whole, and then
I didn't know that was
zeroing in on
scheduled
Bell's
for
Falls.
2021. I thought we were still working out the funding because it was upwards of $10 million project or something, right?
Yeah, this isn't the final, this is
Summary or?
the,
That's my question.
this is stormwater and
One
intermediate.
at a time, can we talk one at a time, please?
Sorry. Ever can expand on that?
Okay, it's, well, when you're talking the major work on Bristol Drive, you're probably talking 20 years down the road, 20 or 30, to really upgrade it. Much as people don't want to hear that, but for next summer, there's some drainage work that needs to happen. Some drain lines, you gotta replace the drain lines that are rotting out, quite a few of them. So it's gonna, mainly just on Bristol Drive, not all the rest of the hill, not all the rest of the streets up there. The town crew, that was gonna be designed, and now some town crew was gonna do the work. So that would happen in April, May, June, probably May, June. Patch back in there, and they'll be actually shipping. We're doing overlay and then the chip seal after we patch it.
So you're gonna do some drainage work on
That's
Bristol Drive? coming up
substantial amount of drainage
this-
work.
Next year?
Yeah. Well, this year.
Well, this year,
Yeah.
into next probably, but.
Well, no, May, June.
In 2020.
Yeah.
What about 2021 for this budget?
Oh, well, some of that, 2021, we're doing this work in anticipation of the paving, and the chip seal will happen in 2021, so we need to do this work.
Okay,
In
so
this
it's
budget.
already scheduled and funded for 2020, this drainage work here. discussing.
Yeah.
And the Hyde Hill project, when would that kick in? I mean,
If we get the grant, probably be late fall, hopefully, we get, late summer.
I mean,
A lot of it depends on the release of the grants.
in regards to that, has anybody been checking the retention ponds and that we need to do any work with those? I mean, that, if something happens to one of those where, we could jam up that, outlet inlets right there by, talk about halfway up Hyde Hill. I didn't know if anybody's been checking those, I know that's an issue.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of settlement area there. I believe it was, there's overflow there, once it overflows, it goes down over, and it would still get across.
They're both wide open.
Yeah, wide open, yeah.
Get down and get some.
Last thing we were doing with that retaining pond in.
I'd like to go back to the manager's note, a 2.12% increase. So that's based on a $100,000 value home. So if you have a $300,000 home, you're paying 3 times of that. If you have $1.3 million property, it's excessive. That rate is just this town tax. What we haven't, what we're not considering is the increase in the water and sewer, the increase in the education tax, the articles that might make it to the meeting, that will also increase the tax. So, as I've said since I've been here, and the reason I ran and sit in this seat is I represent the people that voted for me, who are tired of their taxes. I've said it last meeting, in 10 years, our spending has gone up $2 million, while our grand list, the value, has remained the same. It goes up and up and up. So the sentence that the manager typed, it's not accurate if you own a $300,000 home. If you own a large property, if you're also prepared to be hit with your water rates, your sewer rates, your education, and perhaps some of these items, you could be looking at a very large increase in taxes, again, every year. I'm in favor of level funding this budget, and we need to minimize our spending. And I've said this before, that's all I have to say here. It's not an accurate comparison to the grand scheme of what the taxpayers get burdened with.
Well, you have to go back, you mentioned those articles on a town meeting warning. You have to go back and look. If the people vote those in, we don't have much choice but to accept them.
It's
So the
not
only
up
way-
to me. This is up to me.
Yes.
I'm adding in other additional costs that aren't written in the one sentence the manager read out loud to make it sound like it's a minimal tax. $21 for someone with $100,000
Which
value.
when we
It's
get to the
excessive to others.
Which when you get to town meeting, when those articles are brought up, that's when you want to mention that if this passes, you will be adding X amount of cents, dollars to your tax rate.
I understand.
Okay.
I'm referencing that.
But
This
in
is
the
our
past-
job. This is our job.
In the past, it's been, the budget last year passed with no qualms about it. We had an increase in the school tax, we're gonna get another one this year, supposedly, they're warning us maybe a 6 cent increase. You got debt load up here, if you look at your two pie charts, you're gonna pull up the revenue one to start with. You look and, you watch that, look at the percentage over there, and you'll see that there's hardly any increase at all in anything there. There's a 1.3% in the property taxes. You got 22% increase because we're changing the recycling money. We're gonna change the prices down there, so we're gonna get extra money there. That should almost bring us up to even dollars on the cost versus the revenue coming in. The other one is the miscellaneous other, it's a 12% increase, and I don't think anybody knows what that is. At least I have no clue. Some of it is insurance rebates and things like that. I think we've discussed that
Yeah,
before.
it's all the insignificant amount, they add it up to a lot, but to list every single line item, in that other box is,
So then go to the next pie chart, which is the fun part, the expenses. You look at general fund, 3.5% increase in expenses there. And our debt service, which is another noose around our neck, it's 2.1% increase. Everything else is either a minus or a 0% increase. So,
and the majority of the general fund is assuming a 2% increase in.
you have that.
And the recycling.
Correct.
Yeah, the recycling is a big part of that increase. It's at 30,000.
But also a large part, Mr. Chairman and fellow board members, is these articles in the event they are passed.
Correct.
But it is also possibly, well, I'll be up front, I'm thinking about tonight, making motions to eliminate some of these articles.
You can do that when
I
we
just
get to
wanna
that section of the.
Get it out there.
With the agenda. But if you go back, they do add another column on here that shows you the tax increase from cent to cent. 2017, there was a 8.22 cent increase that went up. There are several items that I went and researched this before I came here. Several items that impacted that. Debt service was part of it. Insurance costs went up. Pension was there. You name it, we probably had to crossed over to it. So those things went in and items that got voted at town meeting. Back 2015, 5.13 cents. That was the amount that we had to cough up $200,000 that had to go to April's bridge match. That when they did the bridges at and River Crossing or April Bridge. That was 4 cents of it, plus there's 4 or 5 other items that added to the other 100,000. So that's where the 5 cent came from.
So let me ask then, while we're considering this, let's just say as presented, all these articles passed, what would then be the impact on the tax rate as far as going up?
For every $46,700, it's 1 cent.
Right, I realize that, but.
Let us figure that out. It's much less than it was last year, if that's a consolation, but,
No, it's more-
but why don't we do it for each one when we get to the,
Sure, we'll go down to
Warning.
this one, sure.
Yeah, we're not on the warning yet, so, but, I mean, there's some items here that are gonna add at least 2.5 cents in addition to what we're already looking at.
What we possibly would spend when it comes to the warning articles is going to somewhat dictate to me what I want to spend on this current budget. I mean, if you tell me, without looking at layperson going through it quick, that could add several more cents to the tax rate. So that kind of tells me that being in a conservative nature to reduce spending.
yeah, it's not several, because the largest one, which would be Hyde Hill, would be from fund balance.
Right, if we elected to take that out of the fund balance, but
Right.
there's others in here that, let me go back to my notes, that are upwards of, $55,000 for one of them.
We're not on those yet.
Yeah.
Now, let's wait till we get there before we question that. We're at the aspect of trying to adopt the budget as it's presented with a 2.12% increase. So, ways to reduce it. I came up with some cuts I sent into the town that amounted, not a big deal, $14,260. That I mentioned at the previous meeting that evidently didn't get taken into it. They're small cuts, but they're things that, if you go back over the budget comparison track that we've got, some of the costs, we adjusted the budget and increased the amount, but we have never spent to that point. So the only one I had an issue with was probably the meeting house maintenance. They got 10,000, I suggested maybe 5,000, cut it in half. Because we've got an article here for another $28,000.
I was going to say there's an article there for that also.
For that, but that goes in the reserve, so the cost for the maintenance of repairs up there have run just around $3,000 to $5,000. So,
Do you want us to speak to that? Because they just started that project, the plaster project.
yeah,
That's what all of this is for.
that's what the reserve is for.
Right.
But we're not getting to that yet. We'll take that up when we get down to the town meeting warning. We're looking at
Peter, Ben.
cuts to the current budget that we presented. Ben?
Right down to it, I'm in favor of cutting public works position out of this budget. We've seen all the numbers multiple times. I don't know about everyone else, but I've done my research, compared it to not just towns around us, but throughout the whole state of New Hampshire as well, and I don't think it's a necessary position. So I'm in favor of taking that out of the budget.
You had your hands up for comments.
It was just referring to the meeting house that I think a chunk of that fund this year went to the architect to get construction documents for the plaster work and do some bid documents. And there's a expensive project that we were budgeting for with capital reserve and try and get the meeting house back in shape. So do what you need to do, but you do have the information supporting what that money will be spent on and why it was needed.
So we're talking the money that's in the budget.
Yes.
Going forward.
Could you tell us what's in that fund right now for restoration on the meeting house fund?
So there's a cyclical maintenance plan that is required to keep the meeting house, which is hundreds of year old building. Well, you're all familiar with it. I won't go into the details of the building, but in order to not let it get run down like it is today, where plaster is falling, you can't use the upstairs. We had a cyclical maintenance plan developed in 2005. We presented that to you in the summer, and the dollars that are in the annual budget are to perform that annual maintenance,
But what's
like any
there-
preventative maintenance plan.
Currently, right now.
I can answer that.
Sure.
The meeting house fund that was created,
Yeah.
so, in FY '20, we transferred
60,000?
22,000.
22,000?
And, then they're asking for another 22,000 to be raised by taxes.
Mhm.
And then the 10,000 in the maintenance line, which is all outlined for this plaster work. So it would take all of it to complete the work necessary to get it
Okay.
where it needs to go.
So what's, is the existing balance right now is $22,000 is what you're telling me?
Correct.
Okay.
I think it's 40 something.
No, yeah, it's
Because I thought it was somewhere near 50, I thought.
Yeah, it's 40.
Oh,
it's
20 the first year.
so yeah, so it's 20 the
Yeah.
first year, 20 the second year, so there's 40,000 in it, and then we've been recruiting donations to that fund, and I think there's another maybe 4,000 in it from donations.
Okay.
The plaster work is well over $100,000, and we will work through as much as we can and continue on with it.
Okay, so currently we're about 40,000 and you're looking for approximately 54,000 more?
No.
22,000 this year.
We created the fund so
Right.
that we could transfer money out of the fund when we were ready for work to be done, so we wouldn't have to come up with 100,000 all at
All right,
once.
but you mentioned the 22,000 on that article, then you mentioned another 22,000 and
Well,
10,000.
22,000 transferring it out of the fund that was
Okay.
already raised. 22,000 be raised by taxes to keep up with that maintenance
Mhm.
plan.
Yeah,
And then 10,000 in the maintenance line in the budget.
okay.
We won't have enough to complete the project.
Well, I realize that, I was
Yeah.
trying to,
And we don't expect to have enough.
We're not trying to raise enough to complete it right now. We're spreading it out over time. It's a 2 to 3 year phase
Okay.
project.
Anything else, Stefan?
I don't know.
Okay, Ben, you mentioned something about eliminating the public works position.
Yep.
Can you expand on that a little bit? Explain your reasoning.
We did. We've discussed it over and over and over.
We've discussed it multiple times, and one more thing, last meeting it was mentioned that if the voters vote for it, then that's the way it goes, which that's true. But our job as a board is to bring this budget down. That's what people want, they need to be able to afford to live here. So we can bring it down, and if voters want to come to the meeting and put that back in there, they can. I feel like when we say that if they want to take it out, they can, that's just us taking the easy way out. So that's my reasoning.
Okay, so how do you propose to get these projects completed that we
What
got coming up?
projects?
There's plenty of them on the horizon, they're gonna have to have somebody here to do it.
For 2021 budget.
So here we are, so we're gonna eliminate this position, and then for 1 year, and then probably another year, we're gonna try and hire somebody back again? Is that your thinking?
It's not my thinking. I'm one board member.
No, I'm just saying, is that, I mean, I'm trying to follow
They
progression.
hire an engineer.
Well,
For
you
these
saw what
projects.
happened, there's a memo there that cost, when we didn't have an engineer for 10 years.
I don't agree with all that. I don't agree with 100 hours for supervision for an engineer rate for William Street sidewalk. I mean, give me a break here. I'm not gonna discuss this, we've discussed it.
Okay,
Here we are again, trying to reduce the budget.
all right, so you wanna make a motion to eliminate the position?
Why does it need a motion? We haven't had a motion on anything else.
Pardon?
We haven't had a motion on anything else we eliminated from the budget.
I know it, but if you're gonna eliminate a position, we should have a motion to eliminate it,
Okay.
or we're just gonna take X amount of dollars out of the budget.
I can make a motion, but
I
yeah.
mean, to me, that we know what we're dealing with,
Well, when we didn't,
there's an amount.
we didn't agree to Gary's increase, nobody made a motion, we just removed it.
We just
We removed a lot of things without making motions.
Okay,
Right or wrong?
You just voted informally, and
Right.
if whatever the majority voted,
The
I did in
consensus,
the
I think,
budget.
we're talking
Okay.
consensus
That's
to
just
eliminate the
previously what
position.
you guys did.
So,
And you
Right.
could just say reduce the budget by 110,000.
I think we've been saying that.
119,000.
We've been saying that since our first meeting,
Maybe go that way.
when we had a 9-cent increase. We've been saying that.
And we've come down a lot.
Okay.
So that's one
yeah.
option you would have, and then staff can figure out how to make that reduction happen.
Is that gonna happen though?
If you direct us to,
Yeah.
yes, yes. If there's a motion and a vote, and if you
Motion and a
say,
vote for what?
you say decrease this budget by 119,000, then we need to find a way to do that.
And then
Yes,
it's-
that's our obligation.
You could set
What would level fund it if it's 2.12 cents right now? What's that number? That's the motion I'd make. If we're gonna just make a motion and have the staff find the savings, then I don't know why we need a motion to say that we want to level fund this budget when we've been saying it for 7 meetings.
Well, you haven't all been saying it.
Well, then let's vote on it. What's
Do
the
you want to
number?
know
What's the number?
So what would the number be?
46.7 times 2.12 cents. Would be about 100,000.
Huh.
$99,004.
So let's make it a round number, just say 100 grand, reduce the budget by 100 grand, and see what we come up with, what they can find for places to reduce it.
We've been through this thing line by line.
I know, but
for
I
7
just,
meetings.
you know, like I say, we keep this round, and we need to make a decision pretty quick.
We
About-
did.
Well, you're making a decision to find it somewhere in the budget or eliminate a position.
If I may,
I think the discussion and the possible motion was to eliminate a position. I think it's now being changed to, they wanna be in control of what gets eliminated.
Well, if the goal is to reduce the taxes by that amount, then let staff figure out how to do that.
I think
Where-
that position at $119,000 is a good way to save money. It's not an engineer cost. I'm not sure what an engineer would do all winter as full-time engineer.
It's
So-
not required to be an engineer, it's a public works director.
That's $119,000 from the budget.
With benefits,
Okay,
yes.
if I may,
Go ahead.
we're here at somewhat the 11th hour. What can you tell me right now tonight if I'm prepared to make a decision? Where can you find $100,000 in savings?
There could be other positions that we would look at. The harm to the organization from deleting the public works director position is very concerning.
I don't
we-
think the
we
board
get-
agrees with that.
Okay, but we're doing the
Peter,
work.
Well,
Hang on a minute, so,
We're in the midst of the work.
But he's just asked you a question, and you're possibly gonna,
Look at it,
another position,
or
which
look
we don't
at
know
another
about.
time, please, let's discuss this one
But
at
we
a
don't
time.
know what that position is, and we may think that position's of value. I mean,
yeah, that's,
Well, that is what you hire the manager to do, is to manage. Your role is to set the budget, set the totals, and if you're still concerned after all of the cuts that we've made that the rate is too high, then you focus on the rate.
what
And
time?
let us figure out how to do it.
So what time frame have we got before we have it cut off, we can make no changes to
1
this
week,
budget?
28.
1 week,
The 28th is really when you need to
So
make
that
it.
means we'd have to come back here again in the event.
You don't have to, you could just say, bring it down, and we figure out how to bring it down.
Right, but
and
that's
then we
without-
show it to you.
Without consultation with.
Everybody's had a chance to comment, let's see, let's give Sue a shot at it. So,
Well, I'm just saying, you're making the assumption that the whole board thinks we should level fund. Honestly, I think level funding is when we already have massive increase in general, with 2% increase in staffing, a 1% increase in health insurance, debt services. A lot of that, as Peter pointed out, thanks Peter for researching, a lot of the increase over the years has been debt service that we've taken on that we're now facing. And this is a temporary blip this year and a little bit of next year. And I do not think, honestly, there's a lot of support in the town to eliminate positions in the town. And I think that's why we bring it as is to town meeting, the budget as proposed to town meeting.
Shannon, I'll come back to you.
I do just want, when the voters had approved the article for the fire trucks last year, they were willing to take on a 2-cent increase in this FY21 budget, that they voted for that. We were lucky to refinance and
Right.
not have, so just throwing it out there that.
But not to knock that, to be fair, it was trumped a lot that there would be a grant. We didn't get the grant. Looking back, no offense to the people who do the public safety, but I probably would have said or suggested to the board that if we did not, to approve the article, but also if we did not receive a grant, that we buy maybe 1 truck instead of 2 trucks. I mean,
You got something?
I did.
Go ahead.
So, I understand that we've put ourselves in debt. And if you look at the item that's on the screen right now, we increase our spending year after year after year after year when you're not making any more revenue. You'd be out of business if you continue to spend. What I want to do is reduce spending. However you need to do that. If you're in debt, you don't continue to increase spending. That's my point here. I've been saying it. Look at what we do. We increase spending every year. If we have to have a 2% increase, then you need to reduce your spending elsewhere. You don't just keep going up. It goes up every year. There's no end to that. You need to manage you need to watch your spending.
Then Michelle.
There's lots of conversation about what the voters will do at meeting. And the reality is voters don't elect you to not make those hard decisions. They elect you to make those hard decisions. And you know that every time you get a phone call from a citizen or a walk up on the street, they want you to do something. They don't want to make those hard decisions. They will vote in whatever they think you logically voted for, agreed to for a budget. They want you to make those hard decisions for them. Majority of the time, we don't even have enough voters showing up at meetings where you're voting in a budget of multi-million dollars. It's not an Australian ballot. So we get less than 5% of the voters turn up for a meeting that gets passed. So you make the hard decisions. They will live with those hard decisions because you're elected to manage them. And you elect them, and you hire a manager to do that for you. Thank you, that's it.
Michelle?
Excuse me, there's many ways that we can look at the spending that goes on in this town. I'm in possession of one of the annual reports, and it speaks to the 2016 and 2018 budget. One of the things that we might look at is the library, okay? I did a comparison, and I have something to say with the budget as well. In 2016, our library expenditures were $400,679.54, okay? I found a comparison online, and it's the Council of the City of New York. This report from their finance division, fiscal 2020 preliminary plan, is from March 11th of 2019. Their 2018 actual budget was $382,438. That was not for one library, it was for 4 libraries. Our one library has an actual budget that far exceeds a place that occupies approximately 8.4 million people. We have approximately 5,000 people in the town of Rockingham. We have an exorbitant library budget. So I think if we're going to eliminate a crucial position, Public Works Director, we're looking to cut spending, and I come from the other side. I'm a taxpayer. I don't want to see a full general budget and a budget where we're going to say, oh, your property tax is going to get increased 2% or 1%. That doesn't work with a lot of the taxpayers. I want to know through our budget, if we could break it down into smaller components,
and put it more for an Australian ballot, instead of just giving us all one general fund with these numbers on it. In layman's terms, people look at their property tax bill and we just pay things. Our country just keeps spending and spending and spending, and there's no overseers or there's no checks and balances. How did our library get to $400,000 and we want to cut out a highway position that might be crucial, not just short term, but long term? So, you know, we can't just eliminate positions just to, you know, balance the budget. It doesn't make sense. Is that something we can yield and concede to for you guys up there from the select board, you know?
Voters make that decision in America.
When that's the problem, when we can reduce the budget, but when it gets to town meeting, or the way town meeting is run, they will probably vote for the whatever they submit for a budget. So if we say to them, we're gonna drop your budget $100,000, come March 2nd, the people will state that there'll be an article on the town warning, which is thousands every year, and if we put it in $100,000 less than that, somebody's gonna come in and raise it 150, I guarantee you.
But how do we, as on the other side, most of you, I understand, live in the town of Rockingham, correct? Otherwise you wouldn't be on this board. We're all taxpayers here. I don't want to get sticker shock when I see my property tax bill increase X amount because you all made a decision to cut spending, we eliminate certain areas, and then all of a sudden it's like we don't have the service anymore. There's a lack of communication from when you guys make that decision, our select board, our municipal managers, when you make that connection, we don't hear it over there. We see it when we go to vote. Okay, we're cutting $100,000. Why are we cutting $100,000? We have projects on the table that are going to cost X amount of money. We don't know that if you don't read the papers, if you don't look at these documents, if you don't go on the website. As a taxpayer, as a resident, we have no clue what is going on. There's a lack of communication between this table here, this room, to the outside of us. And I don't think that's fair.
If I may, I disagree, because there's avenues of, there's the public meetings, there's the minutes of these meetings, there's the newspaper articles that Sue and other people do. And I hear you also advocating early on when you mentioned your preference, correct me if I'm wrong, would be to see, like, for example, the library budget voted on by Australian ballot by everybody in the community, not as an article. And there's a specific procedure to do that.
Is that something
right.
we can yield and concede
And I
to
do,
for the community?
I agree with you and I sympathize, but I also don't like carte blanche when somebody says, well, let me find $100,000 out of this budget, because that's my responsibility. It's a combined responsibility, but I mean, we're going here piece by piece. We've evidently gotten to this point through some form or fashion where, you know, we're looking at considering some options now. But I agree with what you said earlier.
History has proven that every time we go to vote for Australian ballot or Australian voting in this town, it's always defeated, and it's always all the budget and stuff is decided at town meeting. Because at town meeting, you can change numbers. If you go to Australian ballot, you got to start the process all over again and have another voting, which costs money.
Either yea or nay.
And if you want to do Australian ballot, according to Title 17, subchapter 2680, you have to put an article on the budget this year, on your town warning this year, and it will, if it passes, it will not take effect till the following year. So.
And they did vote last year.
And that includes either budget articles, money articles, or non-binding articles, if you want to put them on a public ballot.
So unless a resident gets a hold of one of these annual reports or looks at all of the various media and stuff like that, how is somebody to know that there's X amount of line items in particular budget? And
It's a nice chart she'll present at the town meeting. She'll have it all spelled out where folks come, they get it in advance, they read it, and then they understand.
And then they can ask questions, or if we're up to speed, or if we're awake enough, then someone will explain why we're substantiating the numbers that we have. And if
Okay,
somebody
so-
says, well, what are you anticipating? Well, then we can go into the fact that we're doing road projects or whatever happens to be.
But town meeting also, Michelle, is where you or your friends or whoever in this community wants to be a statesman and come and say, to either increase that article, pass it as is, or decrease that article. Yeah, that's town meeting.
Okay, so when you're looking at the line items for each of
Yeah.
I'm just gonna throw out the library. So you go line by line on them and say, okay, so for example, postage and shipping, they're spending $2,500 back in 2018.
No, that
So-
was done already. They came here, presented their budget. That would be the time where we would say, geez, that's $4,500 for postage and handling. That's a lot. Is that the best you can do? And they say they go back and work. That's been done.
But
That
the
was,
library's a little different, correct, because the library has their own budget.
Right.
And it's its own article too.
they come here and present it and we go,
You would have to go to the library's budget meeting.
as a board. But they don't read that. They read the one of us will read the article with the library budget in it. They're not gonna go line by line that night.
But again, your opportunity is town meeting day, or the town meeting that night, Monday night before the Australian balloting, to make change, decrease, or increase, or approve.
So that's at the town meeting, March 3rd or 2nd.
March 2nd.
I mean, last year there was a motion made to cut the budget by $300,000 or $400,000 and it never got a second.
I mean, I see what you're going at. We're looking at millions of dollars of in budget, and 60 or 70 people approve it. You know,
Because for our community of approximately 5,000 people, we have an exorbitant budget here. And I can't rationalize that as a taxpayer.
Well, their apathy is alive and well in Rockingham, I can tell you. Just look at the turnout. The only time you get a live turnout is when there's a national election or a
Yeah.
primary.
And that's what I'm
that's-
saying, that maybe there's a lack of communication,
But-
because how can we expect people to move in and out, sell homes? If you have a home for $150,000 on an acre property and you tell them your property taxes are $15,000, how can we justify that as a community?
it reminds me of we had a select person on this board that said that, when you come to these crucial votes or town meeting, voters in Rockingham vote by emotion. So if you come and plead your case, maybe you can change things.
We
All right.
have to, we can't keep going like this with this budget. It's
Yeah.
not-
I hear you.
All right, we've exceeded our 3-minute limit here, but,
I appreciate it.
and we've got our input. So we're back to what we want to do with this budget. Either we adopt it tonight, or we wait till the 28th, and it definitely has to be adopted one way or the other. So what's the board's pleasure? We need a consensus or something here.
I'll make a motion to eliminate the public works position from the fiscal year 2021 budget.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion's been made and seconded to eliminate the public works position on the budget. Any further discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, put it to vote, and this is going to be a voice vote. All those in favor would say aye. Sue?
It's a vote, we need a vote for it.
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
I'm asking you for a vote, either vote aye or nay.
Susan Hammond, nay.
Ben, aye.
Got down all right.
Peter, nay.
It's Bethany Doling, aye.
Motion passes 3-2. Position shall be eliminated in the coming budget. Okay. Anything else on the budget? Do we want to adopt the budget with that in mind? Or do you?
What,
That takes 140 grand out.
is your numbers in there? 14,286? Was that accurate, the numbers you had?
14,260.
Are those real numbers that are not in savings?
What are you talking about?
He
Yeah.
talked about this earlier.
You got a,
So I think
The
we-
only changes that I made to the budget were changes that everyone agreed to, not one-offs that people threw out there and then it didn't get any more discussion or it didn't get a vote.
Some of this is from revenue,
what's what?
some of this is from revenue.
No, it's all expenses.
I thought, okay.
There's office
So, do we
equipment.
need to go through this and all agree on it? Is this another
Yeah, the only, like I
$14,260?
say earlier, the only question I had was on the meeting house maintenance repairs. I decided that I made those, cut it in half, and
I prefer if we walk through them line by line, because I'm not super familiar with them, and that way we at least could speak to them.
okay, there's only probably 10 here, so
Yeah, I wasn't done. If I could continue.
8. Go ahead, you got something?
Well, I wasn't done.
Okay,
So I would like to add these if they're additional before we adopt this budget. Does that make sense?
you want to add these cuts?
If the board agrees on these cuts, I would like to add them line by
Okay.
line so she can follow,
All right,
so that we could add them.
I don't have the line item numbers,
Before
but
we adopt the
I can
budget.
give you the description. It's under general budget, and then only a couple on highway. Office equipment service, we got in there 5,000. If we change it to 4, that saves $1,000.
Office equipment for,
And supplies, office equipment services, it's under general budget.
we reduced it to 4.
And you're saying reduce it to,
Okay. All right, second one was the planning and zoning intern, at 1760. Eliminate that one.
I remember that discussion. Does everyone remember that discussion?
yeah.
Yes.
How does
Okay.
everyone feel? Sorry.
The other one was,
Wait,
We
Yeah,
got-
I don't think there was clear direction on that.
yeah, that's exactly what happened last time. If
Because
you
I
had
know-
just vote on each item, so I had already removed 1,000 for the
I
office.
think we made a consensus, we didn't
Yeah.
vote on anything.
Not a,
But-
not a
So
motion
what
and
is
a
that
vote.
one, Peter?
That was the intern for the planning.
Right, so what is that going to be funded by a grant, so it doesn't really affect us?
It's not funded by a grant. What it is, a position that goes out and they just need, it's additional help for them to go do some legwork to do
No, I
town plan.
Well, it's possibly funded by a grant. I mean, the hope is that it would be funded by a grant, but then if it's not, it would be in the budget.
But if
And
it's
the,
in the
and
budget,
the, no, I understand that, but the planning commission very strongly, except for one person, thinks, I mean, they really think this position is important to do outreach.
I don't think Peter's saying it's not important, I just think it's going back again to the fire truck scenario. We can say we get the grant, okay, if we get the grant, that's wonderful, let's do it, but if we don't get the grant, there's not gonna be any money.
It's $1,900. The fire truck was $500.
No, I realize that, but $1,900 isn't, that's a lot of money to some people.
It is, and it's a lot of money to the person who would make it, who would be a person from this community.
Well,
What do you think? Do we need to vote on it?
The consensus that we've eliminated,
Right.
you want to eliminate it, we'll just have, we'll just have a consensus that it gets deducted off.
That's what he's asking. Stefan, eliminate or keep?
my consensus, eliminate it.
Eliminate, Peter?
I can eliminate it.
Eliminate, so it's gone. Okay.
And then in that same planning and zoning budget, you go down to studies. I think they had 3,500 in there, we dropped it to 2.
Hold on.
So we'll put it down on the same planning and zoning budget. That saves us
What,
$1,500.
I'm sorry, what was it?
Studies.
Planning studies. It was in there, I think 3,500. It's probably all gonna add to like 0.25%, but that gets rid of.
I know that Chuck was very diligent with his budget and not asking for anything that he didn't need, like, at all to make sure, so
And that may
without
be-
him being here, staff's recommendation would
What I'm
not.
saying, that may be where he was contemplating a grant, but that's not, it's an expense, so it can't be a grant, there's no there's no revenue listed
No,
for
there,
grants.
There may be a corresponding, in the
Right.
revenue section, a corresponding municipal planning grant.
right.
To cover that, that might be the fire,
And there is
the
one,
park
yeah.
and the
So we would have
fireman's
to
park.
reduce the revenue by the same amount we reduced that.
And we have volunteer work, if that is for that park, we have
That's what's
a
explained.
nationally
I mean,
known,
because I know when Debbie, we talked
person who's
about,
gonna
Debbie
help
brought
us.
up about it being college credits. That's what they were thinking of, getting college credits instead of
There
paying
are apparently
something.
some grants available out there through the Department of Labor to do that sort of thing, and others, Deb Wick has brought them up, so there is a possibility of them finding
That's
funding.
back to the intern one though.
Yeah,
The
it's the
$3,500, there is a municipal planning grant for, I'm pretty sure. in
It's the one for the park planning that we brought up, that was the idea, was to build an actual park on the side where, on Bridge Street, where the,
With the
Hoplos, where
firefighters
the
died, the
hotel is.
memorial.
Right, in that area, that was the planning grant, and that's the one we did win. There is a small amount of matching funds, I don't know exactly.
So we actually got that grant.
Yes, we did. We won that a month and a half ago, I think.
Okay, so we need to get the grant to cover that cost?
The grant covers a certain amount, and there is an amount that has to be matched. Not all of it. I'm sorry, you'd have to ask Chuck at this point, I don't recall what that dollar figure is, but there's a matching piece.
and we have a volunteer architect who wants to help with that project. So it would be good if that project went through. Especially if we don't want to receive grants and then not do the projects.
Okay, next one I was, like I mentioned earlier, the meeting house maintenance repairs. I mentioned cut it in half to 5, but I'd be willing to go only 3, to leave it at 8 and say it's $2,000 instead of 5.
What was it? Sorry.
It was 10,000 and
What line?
the meeting house repairs and maintenance. I think that was supposed to be taken care of, like painting and stuff like that, and nothing to do with the plaster work. Plaster work was taken out of the reserves.
What do you want to do to it?
That's for, yeah, painting.
Cut it to
It's just a
8,000,
really bad
and we'll save
shape.
$2,000.
Yeah, I mean, we're not recommending that, obviously.
Consensus,
Cut it from how much to how much?
from 10 to 8,
From 10 to 8?
saves $2,000. If you look at it and the studies from 2 or 3 years, they have never spent $5,000, let alone 10.
Because we haven't had people here to manage it, that's part of the problem.
Like I say, these are minuscule cuts, but there are reductions.
To manage the meeting house?
Yeah. It's part of, it's just work product. So,
Well, do you wanna,
Don't we have committees and, like, what do you mean we haven't had people to manage it?
we need, the person who designs it is a contract. And then the person who is here, the CLG director handles that, Jerry helps her. Right?
it's time consuming to apply for the grants
And then just manage the
do you
project.
wanna reduce it to 8,000?
Well, I want to hear what my fellow board members have to say on this.
So there's a cyclical maintenance plan that Sue found.
May I?
One thought, I'm explaining something.
So we have never done that preventive maintenance.
We put Bruce up there painting the thing.
So
That's the beginning of the project.
So there's a
One at a time, please.
there's a 10-page checklist. It's all sorts of things, foundations, drainage. There's a lot of annual items. We haven't ever done it. We put in the amount we needed to do it appropriately, but Peter's right. We weren't doing any of it before. 8,000 we do as much as we can. I mean, if you need to cut the 2,000, then it is following the plan. But if you need to cut it, 8,000 will do a lot of the cyclical
So
maintenance.
are we gonna hire out for that, or are we gonna have our existing person do that?
All of the items that Bruce can do are done by him, and items that can't be, we hire out for.
Okay.
You will be then.
What?
You will be doing it.
You got a question, go ahead.
How we did the painting last year? We put him up there with a lift. That was what we were told. Remember?
In this year's budget, yes, so that's in May, he's projected to do that. In the 2020 budget, he's projected to paint one side, and that is in May. We haven't had a lift up at the meeting house.
Oh, okay, because we were told there was gonna be a lift at the meeting house and Bruce was gonna be painting it.
And that was our plan, but it didn't work out.
So
I can tell you why.
Okay.
We moved it to May, so it's still done in the current budget. It'll still get done under the current budget.
But it's gonna take
Okay,
how much?
One side, there's one side per year.
So how much, you figuring $8,000 to do one side?
No, there's a multi-page cyclical maintenance plan, which we handed out to you. I could get that again.
No, I'll take your word for it.
Yep.
Just- I'm just
And
trying
so
to
all of
understand.
those items, there's items that need to be done annually.
Yeah.
There's items that need to be done every 2 years, every 5 years. We went through that, I don't know, it's like 6, 8 pages. We went through it line by line and calculated what it would cost to do the appropriate preventative maintenance annually. All the items, we sat down with Everett, and Bruce, what items could Bruce do? What items do we need to contract out for? And that's the budget that we came up with.
I move, Gary's saying, $8,000 would be very helpful and they would use it and they would be glad to have it. I move we change it from 10 to 8.
Okay. Consensus opinion, everybody along with that? Sue, you hear that?
I heard that, I don't agree with it. I think we're gonna get off our maintenance plan, and this is what we do every time, and we get ourselves in trouble.
But it hadn't been done for years is what we were just told. I don't know what maintenance plan we were on.
Because we are now on maintenance plan, we have a maintenance plan.
Reducing it
So
by
I-
2,000. That 8,000 will get them a long way.
I'm just giving my opinion.
8,000 is better than no 1,000.
Everett, you were trying to explain about the lift thing.
Yeah, no, we can live with that. A lot of that was gonna be contracted out. And the lift was gonna work when we were doing the town hall windows, but we decided to spend a little more time on windows, get all that lead paint off. You know, instead of just beating some of it off. So that took probably an extra week or so there. So the 1 week we wanted to take that lift up to the meeting house, it did not happen. We figured we'll do it in the spring, we're gonna do 2 sides of the meeting house in the spring instead of 1 side. So we will catch back up to where we need to be in this next year. In 2000, yes, we can live with that.
How did we make out? I'll yield with you. How did we make out with the pointing of the cement we talked about with the brickwork and everything?
South side.
South
Yeah.
side?
That did not happen.
We didn't do it, because you guys didn't like the contract.
No, we had a contract.
Oh, we agreed to it.
No, we had a contract that fell through. The guy, he lost a helper, and then so we'll have to readdress that in spring.
Really?
Yeah.
It wasn't that we didn't like the contract. We agreed to it and funded it.
But then the delay is what ended up.
Him losing a helper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is that gonna get done eventually?
No, yeah, it has to be done.
Okay.
We'll reanalyze the budget again, whether we can get back on track this spring, or it might have to be in the next year's budget. We'll see where the elevator puts us, I guess. There's a lot of that.
Was his staging in that number, or would he?
No, who's gonna use our lift? It's gonna be our rental, our lift rental.
That was in the agreement.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you have there, Peter?
Recycle. Repairs and maintenance. It was 7,000, I'm looking at, cutting it to 5, saves $2,000. By the looks of things, I haven't done much maintenance, and being down there 2 days a week, and those machines start screaming, it's not, there hasn't been much maintenance done to it. Supposedly, Gary told me they do have he's working or has a contract for maintenance, but it's never been brought to us, so.
How much?
2,000.
From what?
Reduce it from 7 to 5.
Recycling maintenance?
Yeah.
Gary said because of the compactors are new and everything, that he wanted to maintain them. We just paid all that money for them.
But I thought it was part of the purchase. They come increase them. We had this discussion before, and that's what we were told. That they come increase them.
They do. There's part of the service contract that they do and part of the maintenance we need to pay for on an annual basis.
You just said it doesn't get done?
He mentioned it to me the other day when I was we got talking about it.
Didn't we just purchase them last year?
And that's when he mentioned they had a contract, but it's never been brought to the board. I don't know if there's a maintenance contract he's contemplated. If he has, he hasn't brought it to us. Or if the manager, as far as I know, I don't know if he's even brought it to you.
No,
So,
But
you know,
she says.
eventually they're gonna have to do some maintenance, but what, I don't know. I mean, we found out Eric took part of the thing apart, the ram apart, and he found a bunch of crap that got caught in there, which was causing there's a door and you can get access to it on the side, you take the bolts out of it. And he found a bunch of stuff that had got underneath and got pulled back in there, which was causing some of the noise. So, I mean, maintenance, don't know if you need to hire somebody to do that type of maintenance. You know,
That's out of my scope of work. We just discussed the number, but maybe the manager would know if we have that contract, if someone's doing it.
you can look at it, if it is a contract, maybe we can, look at it and see what it involves. What's the,
So,
staff,
But could we just decide on items as we go, otherwise?
all right, we wanna cut that recycle repair and maintenance. The 5,000 from 7.
At this point, I'm a fan of maintenance, but I feel I need a little more information before I can make that decision.
I would not cut it at this point. There's so much that needs to be done at that facility. It's, I mean, I don't have the information right in front of me because we weren't talking about it. But there's so much that needs to be done there. I would keep it at the 7,000.
Okay, do you want to decide on that one next week if you get the information?
What do you mean? We're not doing this again next week.
Well, we meet before the 28th, right?
Yeah.
No, you don't move before the 28th.
No, because of the meeting to make these adjustments before that.
I thought we were doing the adjustments now.
We are in the adjustments now, but I say.
We are, I'm gonna move, we change it. We don't even know what it's for.
So you want to drop the.
Don't even know if we have a contract on brand new things for maintenance.
We do have a contract
Very
for
expensive
maintenance.
piece of equipment. Is that separate than this line item?
No, that's part of this line item. It's not the total line item. The entire recycling center needs maintenance. Is there not things that need upkeeping down there? You're down there all the time. But it's, if you guys want to reduce it, it's fine. Part of our contract, some of the maintenance is covered and some maintenance isn't for the compactors. I don't know the exact dollar figure, but there is a contract. Part of it's covered, part of it's not.
Yeah.
And just reducing a maintenance line will just reduce what we upkeep down there. So, but yes, I would like to just, for you all to make all the decisions tonight too. And we are up to date on the contracts and knowledge. I don't know every single dollar amount, every contract we have on every single piece of equipment.
I wasn't asking you for any information from the contract. I was asking if we have a maintenance contract.
We do.
And I was asking my question to the manager.
And I rely on the finance director for a lot of that information.
What is under highway?
Wait, can we please, am I taking 2,000 or 3,000 out of the budget, or are we leaving the whole thing?
What's the board's pleasure? You want to cut that
It
item?
looks to me like you can take it out based on what I see.
7?
I concur to take it out.
All right, so reduce that 2,000, make it 5 instead of 7. The other one is highway.
Wait, are you, you're talking about the repair and maintenance, the compactor maintenance?
That's what I thought we were talking about the whole time, contract agreement.
Okay.
Not recycling.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, the building probably could use some work and stuff, but
That's
it's
separate.
been run into every time we turn around.
No.
They have more holes in it than anything else and no heat.
If I remember discussing that building many, many years ago, having sat here probably a decade ago, that was supposed to be, I believe, a heated building. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that was discussed at the time, and it just never materialized.
Under highway, there's staff training evidently What is that?
We desperately need that. It's to reduce injuries and teach protocol so that we can reduce our insurance rates. By just training the staff, we reduce our insurance rates, but also then by preventing injuries and protocol being followed, we also reduce our insurance rates.
Because our workman's comp insurance went up.
Right? We didn't have any training.
So, but we had $3,000 in there for training, and
I wasn't
did we
there.
use it? That's what I'm saying. I
We
mean,
need to use
if
it.
it's not used, then why are we budgeting money to do it if we don't use it? I mean, and the proof is in the pudding when you look at the insurance rate there, workman's comp insurance went up across the board. For everyone, not just highway. All insurances went up, basically.
So are you,
You want to take it out?
I think reducing.
I reduced it to 1,000, we got 3 in there.
I just want on the record to say that the worst budget cut will be, but it's your budget. They desperately need training, whether they've had it or not in the past, and whether, or wherever the fault for that is, I really, really recommend it.
Who are we looking to get trained?
VLCT.
No, I mean, what personnel?
This is all highway.
It's all highway guys.
So then utilize I'd say, make sure we utilize 1,000 or 1,500 or whatever it is. And if we need more money, there's the highway reserve fund, right?
We cannot.
Oh, you can't touch that for that?
No, we have to transfer money from a reserve fund, and you guys decide when we transfer it and what it's.
Yeah, I don't even know if you guys can transfer it. I think it's just town meeting.
Right. It has to be voted on at town meeting to transfer.
Eric,
Yeah, no, part of that, I do recall from a year ago that I recommended putting up their case study course that I wanted to go to, so drop off $1,000. They'll still be, VLCT, it's not cutting the training for the guys, because it's still, their training is pretty cheap when you go through Vermont local roads, so $2,000 you'll still get.
Yeah, that's part of that too, right?
Yeah, that, you're right, that would go in there. So you could slop it, I mean, so worst comes to worst, maybe we spend $2,500 next year, if there's a lot of training that they end up going to. But that was part of it, so I'm not gonna be here, drop off $1,000, you're right back to where you were.
so you're saying don't cut it $2,000, cut it 1,000?
Just cut 1,000 out of it.
All right. We on consensus go take 1,000 out?
Yep.
I can buy, yeah, I can buy that.
Okay, looks like we got consensus to take 1,000 out of that and training. The other one was auto expense for the public works director, but if we're not gonna have one, we don't need to worry about cutting that out.
Well, there will then be mileage for other staff for that running around. Because there's a lot of driving to and from.
To and from what?
All the jobs, the mileage is for his traveling. To and
Would
from.
they be driving municipal vehicles?
If it's Mike, not if it's myself or Wendy. It depends on who is going to take over some of his responsibilities. I don't drive a town vehicle.
Okay, we all set?
Peter,
Yeah.
when we're talking about highway, if we've eliminated the public works position, we can't just have 17,000 in engineering services. We're gonna have to increase that budget line. If we're gonna have to go out. for
Well,
engineering.
we haven't been presented with any projects for the 2021 that we need engineering services for.
Hyde Hill, we need engineering
I don't
services.
know.
Nobody knows when that's happening. So if we don't budget for it in 2021, then you wouldn't engineer, you wouldn't fund it.
The only one I can think of would be the High Hill project. That needs some engineering work done on it.
Or the drainage in Griswold Drive.
When is that gonna take place?
Isn't that next year?
Could be May, June, hope if all works well.
Could be May and June, but also, well, anyway. I think that we're gonna find ourselves up short if we don't put something additional on that budget line.
What's in there now?
17, which is already allocated for, for the, right-of-way stuff.
The surveying.
Yes.
Yeah, there's 15,000 for a survey for right-of-ways in there. And then 2,000 for
That's,
miscellaneous other
Okay.
things, a couple other things, but 15,000 basically the survey right-of-ways. So you know where our road widths and things are. So if we need an engineer, we're gonna deficit spend to get one. If we don't have anything in the budget for it. Okay, we done playing with the budget, so we can move on.
Well, are you adding for engineers or no?
Pardon?
Are you adding anything for engineers or leaving it at the 17?
Board's pleasure, you wanna add some money back in the budget, we just cut some out, now we're gonna put some back in, doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
well, I think we have to be realistic.
I agree with you, Sue, I'm not arguing the point, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
if we're gonna get rid of a position that would do that, then we need to we have to have something in there to account for the difference. So if somebody wants to throw a number on the table, that's what she's waiting for.
50? 60, I don't know. I mean, because there's a lot of other things that, I mean, I don't know where we stand on the process for the, what is it, the hydraulically connected road stuff that's done, that
Yeah,
takes
we got-
surveying.
When were you planning on doing that
I mean, there's things
121
that,
stuff out there?
Like, what she's talking.
Go ahead, Sue, I didn't mean to cut you off.
no, I'm just saying, there are things that Everett does that include engineering that we may not say are a big project in the capital P, but now we may have to hire out.
Well, I agree with
So I
that.
don't know what that number is. I don't know what that number is. I mean, we know what it has been traditionally, which is in that memo from Wendy, 100-something thousand, but that includes projects. I don't know what it is for just the day-to-day stuff. And, you know, the things that we need to meet state requirements. Especially as we go forward in the future here.
Okay, we have a number of 50,000 added to the budget for engineering services.
Well, that's half of what we just.
I don't understand. I've asked what the projects were that we need engineering for with an amount, and we can't be presented, but now we wanna add $67,000 for engineering.
It's been
Well, then
mentioned,
we're just gonna, anyway, I mean, we may find that at the end of the year, we're short in that budget category. I mean, we've overspent that budget category.
Right, it's the stormwater stuff that concerns me, actually. Because that's what, and it doesn't necessarily need to be an engineer to do it, but the public works director, just someone, other than Mike can't handle all the stormwater stuff that we're gonna have.
What's that? It's fine.
All the, just coordination with the state and,
As far as culverts and whatnot?
yeah, culverts and
When you need a
ditches
culvert,
and-
any culvert in town that needs to be replaced is 36 inches or bigger. Needs to have a hydraulic study done.
Right,
Yes, the
Yeah.
state does that for free.
but you
There's-
gotta coordinate with the state.
Yeah, you pick up the phone and call him.
I don't think
I
it's
got
that
his phone
simple.
number.
I don't think it's that simple.
It is. I've done it before.
I understand, Westminster's a lot different than Rockingham, especially the dense part, the Bellas Falls part, it's very different. The outer part, rural Rockingham, I think is similar to Westminster, but
We're talking
Bellas
about
Falls is very
culverts.
different.
He's talking about.
Right, we were
Culverts are
referencing
the
culverts, so
same.
that's all I'm talking about right now.
Culverts are the same in Westminster as they are in Rockingham.
Right, but then there's the other stormwater that we have in, Bellas Falls that's gonna need to be taken care of.
Correct.
Yeah. which
Well, if we're making, that may be involved in a bond or not in a bond, correct?
Are you talking about Hyde Hill? or-
No, I'm talking about inside the village of stormwater.
Eventually,
Yeah.
or stormwater utility, I mean, yeah, funding is
Yeah.
another issue.
That's in the event there is a stormwater utility.
Right, well,
Right. Yeah.
yeah, I was planning to do some sort of feasibility study,
Mhm.
next year to see if it makes sense. Because we are leaving money on the table.
Right.
There's money from the state that we are not getting now that we would get if we had a stormwater utility.
Right, but also that would impact people in this community, it could be commercially and residentially also.
They're already paying taxes to pay for that service.
Right, they're already paying taxes, but we're not funding a stormwater utility.
But you're funding the same things that you would fund through a stormwater utility. Right now, say, we're doing a set of projects for stormwater. We know we're gonna need to do a bigger set of projects for stormwater. We're gonna need to do the bigger set of projects with either the revenue sources we have now or expand our revenue sources. And you can choose not to expand them, but then people will pay more. Or we'll be out of compliance, but people will pay more, is what I expect. Oh, okay, for
What's
this.
up next? IB?
Okay, we done playing with the budget?
I am.
I don't have any more questions.
Pardon?
I have no more
So
questions.
wait,
So,
just to clarify, so nothing was added into the engineering line, so we need a 17?
I threw it on the table and there was no response, so I guess we're not gonna add anything in. Only what's there.
Well,
It's on.
rather than the board suggesting numbers, if we were presented with a number and had another meeting, perhaps that would work. But rather than discussing it when we don't know anything about it, what about that option? Rather than throwing around numbers, perhaps we could get presented with a number, looking at the situation and designating that money for outside engineering. We don't have that. I'm not sure what to discuss. We don't know what the number is when we've been presented with the upcoming projects.
When we did the sidewalks, and we hired that guy from Parkinsville, that engineer outside, what was that, 17,000, 18,000?
I'm sorry, what were
We
we
paid
talking?
him the sidewalk
I
guy,
don't believe she was here at the time.
Correct.
somewhere around 18,000, something like that.
Good time suggesting having another meeting.
No, we're not.
It sounded like you said have another meeting when we could present you the information.
Or we
I was
move on.
bringing
Or we
Shannon-
move on.
Right. I was letting her get up to speed on what
Oh.
just happened.
Okay, we finished?
So specifically, let me ask, so we're clear or we're all clear? That highway reserve fund monies, what specifically can that be used or not used for?
It can be used for highway, but you have to transfer it out of reserve.
Right? Which is.
Yeah, so that's stormwater,
Yeah.
that's, road
Right, because they use it.
construction, you can use it for maintenance, road
Right.
maintenance, it just has to be in the highway area.
Okay. Of which now there's approximate balance of 500 some odd thousand, I think, from the last memo that we received.
Yeah, that's projected
Right.
563, and that's projected at the end of this year, right?
So this time, I would say that if in the event there was some engineering related to a highway or a road related project, or that, or function, that the board would probably come in and make the motions to move that money around.
You can't.
Yeah, my understanding,
can't
we'll
vote it.
double
We
check
can't.
that, but I think it's just town meeting.
It's
that
town
can-
meeting. You have to do that in everybody else.
Well, what do you mean? You just, am I not getting it? And that may be, but there's a set of money there and it's designated for highway purposes or related functions, we just spent how much of it between last year, between the start of the fiscal year and now to get down from $1.3 million to where we're at, and we're having to have, it has to be done in town meeting?
Because it was authorized by articles, yes. That's
Right.
how we spend it.
That's how you spend it. You create an article and it's voted on.
Right, it was created an article to put it in reserve in the event you had to use it. Is that, I don't?
No, this is the general, you're speaking of the general fund.
No, I'm talking of the highway reserve.
The highway reserve, you do have to create an article to move those funds to be used. You're creating a reserve fund so that instead of borrowing money or taking loans or
In other
anything like
words,
that,
It's like.
but the board doesn't have discretion to just do it without.
So we need an article for anything we're gonna do?
An article on the budget to put X amount of dollars for engineering services. That's basically how you have to write a warning
You
article.
write an article to say you want from the
Funding to
highway,
be
you want to
taken
move from
from
the highway reserve
The highway
fund.
reserve.
Then, okay, then we should be, let's do that for an article and add it to this list of articles. That way, you know, it shouldn't impact taxes because the money's already there.
Right, well, what it does is it increases the budget next year, but if it's for a one-time thing, it's not as big of a problem. It's like Article 10 on this.
Mhm.
So it would be similar to that. But
Right.
you want to spend that for
It
one
will,
time.
it will make the budget falsely low because in future years you will need engineering services. You won't want to keep for a line item that you will need without a public works director. It's
Right.
not recommended to use that money out of the fund. That fund is to build up, to purchase, make a purchase for something large so you don't have to borrow.
So capital improvement is the
Right.
idea.
It's not,
How much is in there?
We were told it was too
564,000.
big and we needed to spend it.
no, that's the, we're talking about two different things. That's the general fund balance.
No, I was looking at
Look at
highway.
They're
Highway.
both in the 500.
Not the highway, it's the highway reserve.
They're both 560 something. It's by
Specifically,
coincidence.
That's
you-
the general fund. That's the highway general fund.
right, the one that's Article 10 is the highway general fund now.
Right. But, are you talking about the reserve fund? that you're
Yes.
talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's talking about
You got
the
560.
fund balance in the
I don't
highway.
think
He's just talking about the general.
Yeah, but highway general, yeah.
No, I'm talking specifically the highway reserve fund.
Yes.
Yeah,
The one
that's-
that I just showed you, that's 563,000.
Right.
Yes.
And
He's
what-
saying highway reserve.
There's
You're
two different
saying
things.
highway.
That is fund balance, and then
That
there's
is
a highway
fund balance,
reserve
it is
fund that's
not
set
the
up.
highway reserve fund.
Right.
That is
Well,
fund
I'm
balance.
looking for the highway reserve fund. What could that, what's the,
You guys had created a highway reserve
Right.
fund when you did the meeting house and the,
Right.
so there's two things. You're looking at the highway general fund. The highway reserve fund, you took money, you raised taxes to create a highway reserve fund to put
Right.
money away for capital projects. This is fund balance.
okay,
Which you still need to take out at town meeting.
right.
So how much is in the actual highway reserve, just regarding the 563? I don't think it's $563,000.
That's in the fund balance, is
Oh, it's included
$563,000.
within the fund
The
balance.
Yeah.
highway fund balance.
There's $563,000 in the fund balance.
Right.
What was the transfer that was made? 50,000?
Yes.
To create a highway reserve fund?
Right, so there's only
There was
50 grand in the reserve
Correct.
fund. He's saying to use a reserve fund and not
And I'm
fund
saying,
balance.
it's not staff's recommendation, that reserve fund
No, I-
was to be built up to use for
I
capital
agree with you, but
projects, not for.
let's get our termination straight so we know what we're talking about. I mean, you're talking 163,000, which is a fund balance compared to a reserve fund, which is only 50. So if you're gonna buy an engineer that assumes a number of 50,000, you're gonna blow your reserve fund right off 1 year. And then what are you gonna do with it if you don't need it later on down the road? You're gonna have to either take some more money out of fund balance or, I mean, that's what you're looking at.
Yeah, no, I realize that.
And it would, to me, it would look foolish if we were gonna put $50,000 and take it out of fund balance to use it for an engineering services.
Yeah,
Doesn't make any sense.
I mean,
People are gonna wonder, what are they doing?
it did, yeah, I mean, I'd rather,
To me,
probably shouldn't say it, but I'd like to look at the maintenance position and say, maybe we can do something different with maintenance and sub some of that out and retain that position, but,
You know,
no, we already made the
you
decision.
already
on
done made that
action.
decision, so you can't go back now.
Why can't you? go
Well, you
back?
can.
What decision?
To eliminate the public works department, just, set a position and substitute the maintenance person position.
Well, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying there's an option.
There's that.
Who
But
said
there's,
that?
Huh?
Who said that?
You
well, that's
talking
not,
about it.
well, that's not what I'm saying.
It's not
What I'm
that.
saying is it doesn't make any sense to, you
Well,
know, if you're gonna
okay.
do that with 50,000.
We were ready to move on.
Yes.
Finance manager asked us, are we sure we didn't want to transfer any for engineering? That's where we're at.
Right. Or do we want to put some in the budget? And if you're gonna transfer funds from the fund balance.
I heard-
Unrestricted, it's gotta be on the
Comment.
ballot,
I heard.
on the town meeting warning, so people can vote on it. And it's gonna have to be for engineering services. Then someone's gonna say, well, why didn't you put it in the
I
budget
understand.
anyway?
I heard the entire conversation.
Okay, I'm just, want to be prepared, so when you get to town meeting, you're gonna have to explain why you're trying to accomplish that at the same time, so.
Accomplish what?
Just putting money into, for engineering services out of
We're not.
somewhere, alright, well. Okay, so, we're not gonna put anything in there then, is that the consensus?
I disagree. I think we're gonna find ourselves in trouble there, but we'll face that when we get to it, I guess.
Well, as I say, Sue, if it gets to the point we need one, if the position's eliminated, we're gonna have to suspend to make it up. That's what's gonna end up happening. If you need an engineer, you're gonna have to go and hire one for some project, whatever. You know, then we'll have to suspend, or if we're under budget enough, we can steal it and come from somewhere else. I don't know what we're gonna do with it, but we'll have to cross that bridge when we get to the town meeting, I guess. Okay, let's move on here. We got that. Rescue fire
Well,
truck.
are you adopting the budget?
Do we know what the number is?
Yes, and I got it for
I
you.
was just gonna say, that's probably what she was running off to.
Can you read it? It's,
So I printed these out, but of course, because I'm trying to do it all at once, this is accurate. The only numbers that are wrong on here are this one should be this, and this is going down. So it's just these top two numbers I didn't change before I printed it. Just these top two numbers, this should be this, and this is gonna go down. So I didn't grab this from down here, so this number would be this one now. And
Gotcha.
this is decreased, it's the red number there.
So that's
See that?
5,000 trees gonna go
I didn't see it right.
5129 is.
0.58.
0.58.
That's a reduction of zero.
That's a negative.
Yeah, it's a reduction of about 0.5%.
It's actually that one.
Okay.
So the important number here is the 6,208,639, right? That's the budget that they're adopting.
So the motion would be to set the town of Rockingham municipal tax rate at 1.0.
No, that's for July.
Oh, yes,
The
sorry.
green one, the 6,208,639. So we need a motion to adopt
69208?
6,208,639.
That's what I thought I heard you say was 9, so
Yes, $6,208,639 is the amount of the proposed 2020-21 budget,
okay.
Town of Rockingham budget.
So, yeah.
Now, that 5,000,003 is what we're raising by taxes, correct?
Well, that
Well,
will
depending on how-
change on the grant, based on the grand list. If the grand list goes up, that will go down. So all you're doing today is accepting the
Yeah.
expense budget number.
But that 5,003, you mentioned it goes up with that top number now?
That goes up where the 5
Yeah, that's what I thought, yeah, okay, I just wanna make a line here so I know what's going on here. Okay, so we're ready to adopt the budget. Sue, you ready? Live or die by it, I guess?
Was there a motion?
Not yet, we're waiting for one, somebody wants to make one.
Whoops.
The amount of the budget would be $6,208,639.
With $5,344,000.
Well, that could change, so we
No.
don't wanna mention that number. We're
It's
accepting
only,
an
yeah,
expense
Only the
budget
agreement?
of six
only the
million,
green.
208.
Because even the tax rate and the
School.
amount to be raised by taxes will change based on the grand list.
Right. So if the grand list goes up, it's gonna change that number.
Okay.
So we won't know that until,
Right.
town meeting, we've already.
Till July.
We get there, we can put in that particular number, but then if we find
Right.
out something's changed at town meeting, we can change the expenses won't change, but the amount to be raised by
Right,
taxes
no,
may.
I understand that.
We've done that in the past, at the last second, when somebody says, oh yeah, the budget's changed.
So I'll go ahead and make the motion that the Rockingham Select Board adopt the budget of $6,208,639.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's made and seconded, further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, voice vote, all those in favor would say aye.
Susan, no?
Ben, aye.
Got Donald, aye.
Peter, no.
Stephen, aye.
Motion passes, the budgets will be adopted at 6/208, 6/39, 3-2. Okay. Rescue truck, rescue fire truck refinancing, there's a motion that's out there.
Yeah, where do we have, I think I sent this to you today, right? Do you have that?
I believe I have that.
Everybody have printed it?
You did?
Yeah, we received the
Somewhere there.
the fancy copies are here for signing, and each loan has 3 components to it, so that's why the motion is complicated, so please read it as it's written.
So ready to take some action now?
Yeah, and what
Yep,
this
we
is,
need a
this
motion.
is saving money on the fire truck financing, spreading out the payments in a different way.
I move to authorize the select board and town treasurer to execute the capital equipment refunding note, the resolution of the capital equipment borrowing and non-arbitrage certificate in the amount of $99,000 at 2.45% interest as presented.
Do we hear a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded, discussion. Does everybody understand what we're doing here? So we're financing first year payment at $99,000, and where did the rest go?
To the back of the loan, essentially. We're trying, because the debt service peaked next year and the following year, so we're trying to spread it out.
Right.
So it
I
goes into the
understand where we're
5th
going,
year.
but,
I can tell you.
point we'll have to discuss at town meeting, so people understand
Oh, yeah.
what we're doing here.
Yeah, definitely.
If they just figure it's at 99,000, it'd be great, but we know that's not gonna be the final outcome. We're looking at financing 500,000, so.
I can pass these around to you guys.
But in order to keep the tax rate reduced, we're refinancing it.
So this, you guys can pass them around. So this is how it was
Okay.
initially done, and so we're just, the payments per year, we just changed. So it's gonna be 24,000 now this year it's 24,10. So this is, you guys can exchange these out. This is the fire truck, so this was the initial financing. and this is what
Yeah,
we're
look,
doing
because
now.
it was in there about the savings. and
Try
how
the
she-
financing is back
Yeah,
out.
we'll try, I just wanna make sure.
And the 6th year falls in a good year.
Right, that's when our debt services dip off. and that's the rest.
Similar to what you showed us last time.
On the chart.
It's exactly the same as what we shared.
Okay, we ready? Everybody clear?
Okay, we ready to go with that first motion? Motion to be made to authorize select board and town treasurer to execute capital equipment funding note, 99,000 at 2.45%. Voice votes, all those in favor would say aye.
Susan, I.
Ben, aye.
Guy Donald, aye.
Peter, aye.
Stefan, aye.
Motion passes. Somebody want to make a second one?
I move to authorize the select board and town treasurer to execute the capital equipment refunding note, resolution of the capital equipment borrowing and non-arbitrage certificate in the amount of $396,000 at 2.45 interest as presented.
Second.
Fair.
Motion made and seconded. Everyone understands the motion? Okay, motion is made and seconded to authorize the select board and town treasurer to execute capital equipment refunding note at $396,000 at 2.45% interest as presented. Voice vote, Sue? All those would say aye.
Susan, I.
Ben, aye.
Susan, I.
Guy Donald, aye.
Peter, aye.
Stefan, aye.
Motion passes. All set there. Okay, year-to-date financials. There's a memo in there from the finance director. Anybody have any questions? Sue, you all set with that one?
I'm all set, yeah.
We're kind of signing paperwork here, Sue, so bear with us here.
Okay.
Overtime and compensatory report. Any questions on that? It's in your packet. Hearing none, we'll move on to item 6, town meeting preparation.
All right, so this is the warning and then one article or resolution rather. So the warning you have, we sent you a new one this afternoon. It had some corrections. Really didn't expect the warning to be complete. Might have been changes in the budget, which there have been. So we can go through it if you like, and correct the budget numbers, and then bring it back to you on the 28th.
Okay, so you have, I don't have a copy of it. You said you sent a warning copy this afternoon?
It was sitting in front
should
of
have.
me.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm sorry.
Yeah, there were some things, just typos that we
Yeah.
fixed.
Okay.
But then we also made it, it coincided with the budget as it was
Right.
an hour or two ago. So, so Article 5 needs to be changed
Mhm.
to reflect the new budget. And then the, so I'm looking at this, so we will have the amount to be raised by taxes in there too.
All right.
We will need that to be in there. Library Article 6, that's done. And then Article 7 is the social service agencies, which had to be voted on separately last year, but they don't have to be this year. Then Article 8 and 9 are the products of 2 petitions, and they were just certified earlier today, actually. And so that was $3,000 for restorative community justice, and then $5,000 for the bike project. The bike project was at 3, I believe, and then they asked for an additional 2.
2,500.
It was at 2,500, okay, and that, they would like to receive 5,000, so they did a petition for that. So those are results of petitions. Then Article 10 is the Hyde Hill project that we talked about previously. 11 is the meeting house improvements, $22,000 to fund the improvements with $22,000 to be raised by taxes. Let me go back to the Hyde Hill is from surplus balance, so that would be fund balance of the highway fund. And then, yeah, oh, sorry.
Sorry I missed this earlier, but there would also be a request to move $42,000 from the reserve fund.
Yeah, and I thought we had that actually. Maybe that was on a previous
For the
draft.
meeting house?
Yeah, I remember writing it. But maybe I wrote it in the budget stuff and not in the warrant. All right, so that would probably be a different article. I
So
think,
you're adding
right?
that in?
Probably ought to.
Well, it was something that we already talked about. I don't know if it would be the same article. I don't know.
So.
Let me talk to the attorney about
Probably
that.
ought to have another article that says, you're gonna take 40,000 from reserve fund and what's to be expended, what it's for.
Right, I think it should be a separate article.
I
Is that what
think
you're
so,
saying?
too. Yeah. We try to run it all together, it's gonna get confusing, so we're trying to figure out what we want.
But we'll put it next to the other one.
Yeah, and the 22,000 is the item that would be the annual appropriation for the reserve fund, but since we're gonna spend it this year rather than move it in and out, it's just to the.
Yeah, maybe I'll put the other one before the 22.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know, you think we ought to put an annual appropriation in parentheses at the end of that, just so people know that's what it's for, we're just replenishing we're just taking the 42 out, but we're putting 22,000 back in to keep the fund, reserve fund.
Yeah, but the 22,000 isn't gonna stay because, as Gary explained, the expenses are gonna be 100, so we'll end up with 60-something thousand if we move the 42 and have this 42. But we also have other funds in there.
And there's some grant funds too, and it'll all get spent and maybe do half the project if we're fortunate.
Yeah, they anticipate that the fund balance in that, the meeting house fund would be zero
Okay,
at
no,
the end of the next
probably all
year.
right the way it is then, yeah.
Okay.
And we'd like to withdraw the TLR $55,000. I heard that it was too high and to mitigate the risk of getting tax rate being increased by this voting being a yes. We reduced it to 55,000 and took out some of the maintenance, but then learned that it couldn't be an Australian ballot. And the purpose of this was to show community support for preserving the TLR so that we could then get the grants next year. And apparently it can't go to the Australian ballot. It would have to come up at town meeting where there's not enough voters to really show community support.
So we're striking Article 13?
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to go back to Article 12, and I'm entertaining the thought of striking that also.
So I do
Why
have
did that one get reduced?
So instead
As
of funds to purchase and renovate it, it's funds to just do the exploration for that, which is the environmental work, the option. It's spelled out over
Town.
here. Yeah.
You want the town taxpayers to do the background work?
Well, so it would, what it would do is,
Building they
it
don't
would,
own.
it would place the town as owner and do the preparatory work based on an option that if the feasibility didn't bear out, we wouldn't exercise the option. So instead of the funds in there to actually buy it, it's asking the voters if they want to move forward with that, with the preparatory work, and do it as an option.
So how much real estate's involved with that acreage vote?
Yeah. I'm confused the way you're playing something here, but go ahead.
Well, how much real estate's involved with the train station?
So it's just the station itself. The state of Vermont owns the property.
And who owns the building?
Vermont Rail System.
Okay. And early on, we had some conversation down there when we did a bridge tour, and it was possible talk about, could be contamination or some type of whatever.
There is asbestos contamination. There was,
Right.
were studies done in 2002 that shows the contamination and the cost, the projected cost for remediation. And if you look at the implementation overview, items 1 through 7 talk about where the money will come from, and very little of it will come from a loan. It's mostly grants.
Yeah, I'm not knocking you, Gary, but I've sat here since 6 o'clock. This comes up at the 11th hour when I could have had chances to read this off and on between 6 o'clock and now. So I'm not happy about that, but I'll move on. I'm not happy that, if the state of Vermont owns it and Vermont Railway, or whoever the owners may be at this current point in time, they should be stepping up to the plate to do these repairs, or to do these renovations, or to implement some type of project. To ask them to put this onto the backs of the taxpayers, I think is, well, I'll just leave it at that. My other item is, and I love history, but I mentioned this years ago when we had the intermodal money, and some people at the time, the majority of the board, elected to spend that money elsewhere. I believe I brought this up at that one point in time of the train station, but irregardless, it's not our property. We're getting into being a landlord and being more of a landlord. And there's other properties in town that have been mentioned. I mean, I'd love to be able to save everything or be able to fix everything up, but I don't want to do it on the back of the Rockingham taxpayers.
So this project is a little different. The train station, it's a public facility. It is typical for municipalities to own and operate the public transit aspect of it. And
now I know you mentioned it, or it came up with some conversation. There was a couple of sponsors down there so that Amtrak and Greyhound can stop or have a place there, correct?
yes, there are revenues from that. If we're asking Vermont Rail System to save this building for the public transit stop in Rockingham, it's not going to happen. We'll lose it. And we can say whatever we want.
Well, I'll say I just heard an article the other night, and I'm not a big fan of Amtrak, seeing they're going to bang somebody $25,000 because they're in a wheelchair to go on a train somewhere.
So there is the Bellows Falls Area Development Corporation has offered to do the work as they did with Robertson Paper as a backup. And the reason for coming to the town is for public transit, it's more typical, it's more supported by the federal grants for the purpose of it. The purpose and need is to maintain public transit for the town for the long term. And there's a more of an assurance that the town will be a going concern 50 years from now, and that's not a sure thing with a nonprofit, with a private nonprofit.
But the BFADC is behind this?
Yes.
And where you would anticipate monies from the revolving loan fund also?
So BFADC would take on this project if the town won't. But I'm suggesting that it...
And that would involve monies possibly from the revolving loan fund if this board so saw fit?
I don't know. We did not lay out a plan for BFADC doing that at the board meeting just
I
last
haven't
week.
heard this from the BFADC. I just heard some recent conversation.
Before you start, council, let them explain something first.
At the board meeting, just last Wednesday, the BFADC board indicated that if the town was not willing to do this, they would be willing to take on the project. So there's been no the BFADC board hasn't discussed how they would do that. They said that they would be willing to take it on and come up with a proposal if the town wouldn't. I'm suggesting the best option is for the municipality to take it on with very minimal request for this year.
Yeah, but once we become owner or something like that, that puts us into a lot more liability. I mean, we own the property, then we're responsible for it. And I see the state of Vermont, I just read this morning, is doing potentially between railroad traffic, Amtrak, between Burlington and Rutland, they're talking about. So, well, I won't, on the west side of the state, they're up and down there. I mean, all those monies seem to be going to the west side of the state or to the north. What's going to be coming from the state of Vermont to help us with this project?
So the state of Vermont has increased its payments for the Amtrak Vermonter to well over $12 million. Much less goes to the Western Corridor. And the reason they're funding the public corridor, the Western Corridor right now, is they've done the work on our corridor. They put millions of dollars into replacing the rail with the quarter-mile welded high-speed rail.
Right. Yeah.
They've done the work from border to border, north-south, for the Vermonter. And the Western Corridor was next. That's why they've already invested in this corridor. They will be doubling the service on this traffic, 2 round trips a day instead of 1, and continuing on to Montreal.
Side.
On the east, yes, on the Vermonter. Okay. So the state is investing in Amtrak service here, increases in it. And we haven't really done any preservation work significantly since around 1999 with the Exner Block and the Howard Block.
Right.
This is one building that I think most of the community really wants to see preserved.
Right. But
and would support a town role in it.
Okay, looking down the road though, are we talking staffing? We're going to maintain that. We're going to have staffing. We're going to have employees. We're going to have probably another department or something.
No, we would not look for the town to be the operator. The town would be the owner, so that the federal grants have the assurance that the entity will be here in 50 years, 100 years from now to ensure preservation of the transit system. But as far as operating it, the town would not be the operator.
So who would be then?
So private parties would develop the income aspect of it and the transit aspect of it. But for establishing the project and renovating it, the town is really the best. The reason that it didn't happen from 2002 to 2008 when it was on the table is that there was not an owner. The town wouldn't be an owner, nor would the transit operator. And this is probably our last opportunity to do it. It's starting to go the way of other buildings. And I know everyone's saying, just make the railroad fix it. They're not going to do that. They've been very clear about it.
So what happens to, say, Amtrak and Greyhound then if it doesn't?
I don't have an answer to that. They do. Amtrak has stops in Claremont where there is no station.
Right.
They do what they call a whistle stop. If they have a ticketed passenger, they will stop to drop them off and pick them up. Brattleboro, the town has owned the train station and done the work to get some renovation going, and is turning it over to, I believe, to a museum to do to take it the next step to be.
But it still would operate as a stop.
Brattleboro does, yes.
And they have a station, and they're actually improving their station. Amtrak is helping them improve their station.
Okay.
Any questions? I see your hand fly up there. I sort of am in favor of this article, only from the responses I've heard down the recycle center. A lot of people would support this article, I think, mainly because of the train station and the bus thing. When Fletcher's was alive and well downstairs, we had the buses stopping down the square, but the train doesn't come up here. There's no grass. It's a little difficult to get the train up here. My only concern is the town being a landlord. I explained this before. Once you're a landlord, you're our landlord, and nobody is going to really want to take that and encumber all the maintenance issues, repair issues, everything else. Why should I do it when you own it? It's your problem. So, I mean, there's a trade-off, but I that's the.
They're good points. Once the facility is renovated with the federal grants that the municipality can access, it won't be difficult to find an operator to take on the station. I'm sure you could even sell it at that point too, if the concern was being a landlord. I believe Brattleboro is selling their station to a private operator.
Their station is a part of the museum, and they actually turned their railroad station into a museum, is what happened. I don't know about the ownership, but this station has room for a cafe, brew pub. That's what's been talked about. So there would be value that way.
So the other issue is then becomes a tax issue. If the town owns it, nobody pays taxes.
No, you can lease it.
Let's go back on it.
No, you can lease it.
Can lease
Excuse me for interrupting, but you can lease it and then they pay tax.
And it's worth $500,000, and when the town taxpayers pay it to renovate it if we don't get any grants.
We're talking $2.3 million.
At that point, we don't get any tax money back. And then, yeah, you're going to lease it, but you still own it, and you encumber all the costs that come with ownership.
No, but if a private company leases it, they do pay taxes.
If you get somebody to do it.
Yeah. Well,
I know there's a lot of ifs here, but like I say, I would support the article if it gets to the, to vote. So I don't know how anybody else on it. Stephen already said he didn't really thinking about taking it off. It was.
I agree that Peter, I agree we support the article. First, it gives us a sense from the taxpayers and town people what they feel about the station. And we can have the discussion at town meeting whether we do want to purchase it. And this gives us that opportunity to raise that.
I think, if I may, having hung around on the west side for a while when Amtrak comes through, some of the places there are just basically I don't know if it's a plastic or not a glass probably, but a plastic type vestibule where if you're taking a train, that's where you're going to hang out. The train comes at say whatever time it is, and you hop the train. Probably the ticket sales and stuff, a lot are done probably online. I haven't looked into that.
There would be no Amtrak ticket sales there. Amtrak sells their own tickets.
Right. So if in the event we didn't do anything with the station, the train still would be stopping there.
Yes, like I
So
said,
they're
it
not
stops in Claremont with no station.
Right.
And you're probably right with the Western Corridor. Is that a pleasant way to go for travelers? I don't know if you folks have traveled by train.
I see a lot of traffic on the west side, and a lot of us between there and New York City and Albany.
Not even close to the ridership on the Vermonter. The Vermonter has had consistent increases. It's often sold out. It's one of the most productive routes the Amtrak has. The Western Corridor doesn't come close to
But the Western Corridor seems to, in my opinion, get a lot of attention from Montpelier and Amtrak. I mean, they had a beautiful Christmas train go through there. I don't know who that was, but I mean.
That's the Rutland radio station. All the Christmas trains they're privately run, except in Burlington, Vermont Rail System operates it.
It was a wonderful train. Yeah.
But they're privately run, the same as the one that is out of Bellows Falls.
Yeah. But I just can't see. I love the idea. I'm just not prepared at this time to ask Rockingham to become the owner of this. That means we've got it indefinitely. We will be maintaining it and paying for it. Just looking at your estimated renovation cost, $2.3 million.
Yes.
You talk about a lot of grants. That'd be great if we got these grants, but again, grants aren't guaranteed. Some grants require matches, or a certain percentage of a match, or an initiative from the community or the town.
So these, the VCDP grant, they said that they would accept the USDA Community Facilities Grant as match for their grant.
Okay.
The Northern Borders Regional Commission does have a match. They'll fund like 50% of a project, but this $500,000 is way less than 50% of that.
Okay.
So if these grants don't happen, the
Right.
station doesn't get renovated. There's no way this is worth renovating without the grant funds.
Right.
Public transit is being strongly supported, and there's no reason to
Yeah.
think that these grants wouldn't have. It might take 2 to 3 years
Right.
to secure them, going back for some of them.
Well, I
But
know
there's no reason to
with the
think
rail
that it wouldn't
track too in
happen.
Vermont, but still, I just don't want to be able to get stuck with owning it, and then we're forced to make repairs and renovations where we don't have the monies unless we go to bond.
We wouldn't be forced to repair it if we didn't get the grants.
Well, if we own
So-
it, we'd have to do something with it.
Well, the 12,000 doesn't mean we would own
Yeah.
it. The 12,000 is just the initial investigation.
So
To
the
decide
12
if it makes
So
sense.
the 12.5, so we all understand, is just going to get us an appraisal of the condition of the building.
And-
It's not- we're not entering
And
into-
site control to do the environmental work
Right.
with an option that we can choose to exercise or back out of.
Okay.
So that's what those funds are for.
What's the environmental survey cover then? Because I heard a lot of talk, we talked about the Canal Street Bridge, about, it was rail yard, all this contamination and blah, blah, blah.
Right. So the state owns the rail yard
Yeah.
and all the land under the station.
Yeah.
So this would be about the building, the environmental situation in the building.
Well, I realize.
The building does have asbestos contamination, and like I said, that was assessed in the categorical exclusion. There's and the cleanup is in this cost. It's on
Right.
here.
But if any of this contamination traveled through the ground, like they were talking with the bridge down there, as we had the big tour on over the
Yeah,
summer.
so any contamination in the ground is the state's. That's the state's property.
Well, I thought the contamination was the town's responsibility for cleanup.
Well, you're talking about a different property. This
Okay.
property, it's the state's. The state owns it.
You're thinking about the property on this side of Canal
This
Street.
way, yeah.
That's what they were saying would be our responsibility.
So we have to, according to this, at the bottom of the page, implementation overview, it says, number 2, we have to, you hit the answer, I think. So, you back on?
Yeah, I'm back on, sorry.
Oh, okay. No problem, we're still playing around with the railroad station. And, number 2 says, we have to pay into an option agreement for $5,000 with the Vermont Rail System. They don't wanna own it?
Well, so the
So we gotta pay them to go on
$5,000
option?
is an option so that we have first right of refusal while we do the exploratory work. And if the feasibility is not there, we get the $5,000 back if we opt out.
Where does it say that we get the $5,000 back?
Well, this isn't an option agreement. This is
Right.
this is a step-by-step plan of what we would do. So the option agreement would come before you. You would need to authorize the option before we execute it. That would, if this is approved at town meeting, we will bring an option agreement to the board
Yeah, so
with
basically,
a request to
what that
approve.
option agreement is a first right of refusal. So you're paying somebody so nobody else cuts in line, and you can say yes or no if you want to buy it.
Right.
And they're gonna give that money back if you say no?
That's how the option is structured. Yes.
That's not how all option agreements
it's not.
work. People keep the money. And this
So
is,
do we have any idea what they're looking to sell that for? Sorry, if we ever got to that point.
So they had been asking $248,000, and in the most recent, that was 2 years ago, in the conversation last month with the general manager, they indicated that they would be open to the commercial appraised value, because a lot of these grants is what that's based on, and I'm pretty sure that'll come in at less than $100,000 at this point.
okay, so if I may,
But that's part of the work that we're suggesting we do, is get the commercial appraisal that's required for the federal grants to purchase.
right, you talked earlier on, last time, I think 3 meetings ago or thereabouts, about a lot of roof repair and something else, right?
That the roof repair was done, yes.
Roof repair was done.
Yes.
Oh, I thought you were seeking funds to do a roof repair.
No.
The other question is, clarify for me, state owns the land, railway owns the building.
Yes.
What's the town of Rockingham to own?
Say that again?
State of Vermont owns the property,
Yes.
railway owns the building.
Yes.
we get involved as the town of Rockingham, what are we going to own?
So we would be purchasing and renovating the rail station.
The building
The
itself.
building itself, and the town leases the property for $1 a year.
So we
And
wouldn't
the
be-
state leases, yes.
Right, so we won't be owning the property at all.
The
Do they-
state would continue to own the property, and they want to continue to own the property because it's important to them that the property stays in public transit and rail, both freight
Yeah.
and Amtrak.
So is there a pilot program involved with that right now with the state of Vermont? Would they make a payment?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't believe so. There are pilot payments the state makes to the town. I'm not sure if that property is.
So and maybe I'm not clear on this, but how would somebody be paying taxes on it if the state of Vermont owns the land and they don't pay anything now?
The building
points-
has
okay.
a value, and you pay a property tax on the building.
Is there a tax currently paid by Vermont Railway on the building?
No.
So what would lead me to believe that somebody else owning the building would pay a tax on it?
Because it's a choice. We've never, when Connecticut River Transit built a facility, we made a choice to pay a payment in lieu of taxes to the town.
Right.
So when this building is capital leased to a private operator, we would require that they make a payment in lieu of taxes.
Okay.
That's a choice that we have.
Okay.
Any property.
Okay. Are we ready to, finish, we finished with it?
Good question, Stephen.
Meeting
It's
morning?
all right.
No, well, we want to cover our bases before we get
Absolutely.
hung with a short rope
So do
or
you want
whatever.
to keep the article or get rid of it?
Let's make a decision when our fellow board member gets back and so we have a full complement.
But what?
Well, I'm on the phone now, so I voted on everything else, doesn't matter. I think we vote on it now.
The town will stepped out of the room,
Well, let's
so.
see if you have a consensus.
Yeah, and you're not
So
gonna,
we can keep moving. Do you want to keep that?
I'm okay with it on there being discussed. And
You-
I don't have a problem. Sue, you all set?
I'm fine with it, yes.
Okay, Stefan?
Yeah, let's discuss it and see where it goes.
Okay, we'll leave it on, see where it goes. All right. Town meeting, thanks, Gary. Are you up yet? Okay, the resolution for Connecticut River Conservancy is in your packet. I don't know if anybody read all that stuff and looked at all the pretty pictures and.
Well, I read some of that, and I understand with FERC and everything else, but I want to make sure that, I want to be a good neighbor with these people. They're, when you look at the hydro facility, we have an understanding or an agreement, which we didn't have a few years ago, where right now everything's working fine and everyone's getting along. And I understand there's some issues with the Conservancy, with the Connecticut River thing, but I just think it's important that we remember that they pay a substantial tax bill also, you know?
yeah, they pay the biggest tax bill to both the village and the town by a lot. 55% of the town? Yeah, 55% of the town
Yeah.
is paid for. by them.
55% of the town, and how much of the village? 63% maybe?
I don't remember, but this particular resolution focuses on
Erosion. and stuff.
erosion.
Yeah.
And I don't know that the town has issues with erosion specifically.
Property owners do, some of them, especially lived up on Missing Lake Road. I know
Okay.
the bank is washed away over there, and at one time there were plenty of room as you went up to the Lily property on the corner, and the road now is just about on top of the bank. It's been
Oh, wow.
washed away that much. But I don't think it's super dirt. It's reading the report, it's not so much as a fluctuation in the level of the river as the flow of the river, especially if you have high water. That's gonna take more erosion away than raising and lowering the water and level.
Well, there was, I thought, some conversation in there as to governance of flow. So,
Yeah.
and a lot of those lands that some people that you mentioned, like when I drive up to Charlestown to go to work, are actually owned by the hydro for,
Right.
like I call it a flood area or whatever, I'm not sure the specific term for it, but I just wanted to make that clear.
So they're actually asking that they review the plan of their licensing application, make sure that they have something in there that's gonna address the concerns of the conservancy. Basically, that's what the resolution
Yes.
is asking for.
Right.
So if we okay that, it's up to FERC to implement anything that happens. So we can, this is basically our putting our 2 cents in and saying, yeah, we agree with the conservancy. But if FERC says it's not that important, if you look at it, they're saying it's the level of the water that's causing it, and it's a he said, she said type of situation.
Right.
FERC saying it's not, it's the flows, and they're saying it's the level of the river, so. You know.
Right.
And you can tell just the way the river moves around by the current,
Yeah.
so.
No,
And that's gonna do with the level of the water.
I want to reminisce here, but I just heard a Vermont Public Radio article that was about 2 weeks ago with a gentleman from Maine that was involved a lot with us down here on the hydro back a few years ago. So, kind of like stepping back in time here.
All right,
But yeah.
any comments on this conservancy thing? So you have any comments on that resolution?
No, I don't. I mean, other than I feel like there's a lot of information here that it would have been nice if somebody from the conservancy came and kind of argued their case a bit more. So I feel that's kind of missing. And with Irene and all of that, it's just really hard to know where this is coming from, the erosion.
Okay.
Well, there are a
Without
couple.
getting into the real depths of this report, which I honestly haven't had time.
Didn't we appoint a couple of people from this community to sit up there?
Yeah, Margaret Perry, and I think Tom,
Yeah.
To be on what?
And it's also a
Conservancy?
three-day
Yeah, to attend those
thing.
meetings.
It's not just our.
Yeah, and most of
There's things that happen up above that affect down below, and
Right.
it's a complex thing that I don't feel we.
So you're talking about the FERC meeting, yeah, one area where I hope the town does consider taking action, if we can figure out how to make it work time-wise, is in the area of recreation facilities, because that's a possible economic development program, and a lot of other communities are looking at that too, because the obligation of the dam property owners in the licensing process is to compensate and mitigate for damages, and so the river really can't be used as much for recreation. So, so there's some possible changes to what they do at Herrick's Cove and also down here that they actually might not mind complying with. So you might see this again. You might see the FERC stuff again. I hope you do.
Yeah. So what's the board's pleasure with this resolution?
What are we being asked to do right now?
You would be putting it on town meeting. You would be sending this to town meeting for their consideration, if that's the request of the Connecticut River Conservancy.
Well, in that case, I think we can put it on as long as we get more information.
I apologize, I missed the discussion, but isn't it in essence trying to hold Great River Hydro responsible
for erosion?
So I'm not in favor of that. They pay 40% of the property tax. I think we worked hard to re-establish a good relationship with them, and we should support them.
I think she just said 53%. Did you know?
53%.
55 for the town, right?
55%.
And how much in the village?
We have a nice relationship with them, and I think we should. My feeling is support them in their decisions.
I was speaking of that relationship while you were out.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. I'm glad somebody else realizes it.
That's a big. We worked hard to reestablish that relationship for those.
Yeah.
Actually, it doesn't say it needs to go on the town warning.
No, it doesn't need to, but that was just their request. That was the request of the Conservancy.
Are they coming? When are they gonna come? What's the part that they're gonna present or?
I don't know if they would be able to present at town meeting, just because there's, all the town meetings are happening at one time, but, I didn't see that as something that was stated in here. Did you see it somewhere?
Yeah, I noticed back early on when we were talking about the Route 12 project, this has been mentioned by some people, or I should say some of the erosion, but I didn't see anywhere where the Army Corps of Engineers thought it or saw fit to, as some of the residents may have suggested over there, dump riprap to prevent some of that. And I think, if I remember correctly, from what I read, that the Army Corps of Engineers was against that also.
The riprap?
Yeah.
They usually are, just because it's fake.
I'm not in favor of this.
So you're not in favor of signing this resolution then, correct?
I'm not.
Okay. It doesn't say anywhere, I can't see anywhere in this, and I read this through, that it says they want to go to town meeting.
Yeah, that was, maybe they said that in the,
Maybe.
email.
Well, we
But-
didn't get that email, so if you got it, then
Yeah, that's
to me.
my recollection,
to
but
me, it
it's,
appears
I don't,
that they're asking us just to sign this resolution.
yeah, this was a pass-through. I don't know that much about it, about the erosion in Rockingham, but I am familiar with the recreational part, and I would have more of an opinion on that, but that's not what they're asking here.
Right, they just asked us to sign a resolution that, for, do recommended, modified dam operations and provide ongoing monitoring and all that stuff that they probably currently do anyway, but they don't do enough of it to satisfy the Conservancy.
Yeah, or the property
So-
owners. is-
Right, so what we need is consensus to, or a motion to sign or not sign the resolution here, so.
Well, you
I'll
don't need a
entertain
motion to not sign, right?
Yeah.
Only if you're gonna sign.
So I have the email here from, says that the Connecticut River Conservancy encourages all adjacent river towns to pass a resolution on town meeting day and submit that resolution as comments to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission to clearly communicate the town's ongoing concerns and interest in making sure that project operations are changed to minimize erosion of the riverbanks, and that towns and property owners are compensated for loss of land or needed stream bank stabilization work to protect their land and infrastructure.
Do we have ongoing concerns? Is that an ongoing concern of ours?
Yeah, that's what I was asking about. I guess up by missing link there.
So technically, we really don't have to do anything with the Conservancy if they want us to put it on the town meeting warning. So we can neglect it, discuss it, and if it's so, which of the voters that we do something, hopefully somebody from the Conservancy will be at town meeting to explain this, and we take it from there.
They're wanting to pass this at all town meetings so they can turn it into the feds to
Right.
go after these large
Yeah.
hydro dams, which I don't have a concern with their operations, and I surely don't have a concern of presenting myself that we're concerned about their operations when they pay 53% of the tax bill. It's not a message I'm
Right,
interested
so-
in sending them.
so we
Because
want-
because I got presented with this information, suddenly I'm concerned.
So do we want to put the resolution on the town meeting warning? And we'll discuss it.
That's a good question, because you could get a crowd that feels that, I don't know, I'm not interested in discussing it at the town meeting.
We need a consensus here, otherwise we're gonna be here all night. I'm not interested in discussing.
I don't think we need to discuss it.
You're not interested?
No.
So, you interested in putting it on the town
I mean,
meeting?
I think things are worth a discussion, but, how's that discussion?
So maybe a non-binding article? If you want to put it on as a non-binding or informational only.
I think the three of them,
Yeah.
the consensus is no.
Okay. Consensus, we're not gonna put it on.
Okay.
Okay. All right, review agenda items for the next meeting. It says February 4, but we're gonna probably do January 28th, I'm gonna guess.
Right,
Unless-
right, so it's really gonna be
Unless
the,
if that's a joint board.
I think we can work it out so that we have a select board and then a joint board. Or the other way around, we just do it sequentially.
Weren't the trustees having a meeting before the joint board on the 20th?
They were also looking at having a meeting, so we may do like select board
One way or
or
the other.
trustees overlap, select board. So
Is
just
there anything that's
keep
gonna,
your-
that both entities have to decide, or is it just two separate meetings?
No, the overlap is for the personnel rules
Well, the overlap also.
and the alumni.
Yep, and then the trustees want, I believe, discuss jointly, even though the select board already signed the,
Letter from Walpole.
no, the, public, computer thing.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
Public.
well, there's two things, the nuisance ordinance
Social media policy.
and the social.
Social media policy.
Yeah, the social media policy, which I
Which
don't
is-
know if the select board wants to discuss it again or not.
Yeah, we voted on
We
it.
already voted on
And
it.
the town already has a page operating.
Well, yeah, the towns have, one page, the recreation, yeah.
I guess where I'm going is that we don't need to be sitting there twiddling
Correct.
our thumbs while the trustees are doing their business and they're sitting there twiddling their thumbs
I
while they're
agree.
doing our business.
I don't
I
think
was
anyone.
at that one.
And this is, it comes a situation where their second meeting that they voted not to have is being done at the expense of us hanging around.
I think they talked about starting at 5:30 or 5 o'clock at that.
Right, I had asked them if that was a possibility. So if we can do trustees first, and then the joint, and then select board only. And the select board only, I think would just be the warning.
Luke?
Just the
Yeah.
warning, yeah.
Hey,
What?
we lost connection. She's
Oh,
back
oh.
Yeah, yeah, if people are going to work, so the internet service here is getting bad, so.
Yes, the trustees wouldn't interfere with you, the joint meeting started at the normal time, and you guys would just do your warning at the end.
Great.
That's fine.
Okay.
Just discussing time for the joint board meeting.
All right, so we're gonna have one on the 4th then, and the joint on the 28th, correct?
Yeah, but you'll have a regular on the 28th
Right.
also. A joint and a regular, right? I mean, it'll be special because it won't have been scheduled. It's not on your
Okay.
regular time.
Right.
Right, and on the 28th is alumni parade, permits, and the personnel policies. Those are for the joint. Those are the two things for the joint board.
Okay, so we're gonna have a joint. What are we gonna do on, we don't have to decide that tonight for the.
For the 4th?
For the 4th. All right. Budget's already adopted anyway, so the joint board is gonna have alumni and what else is it?
Personnel policies?
Personnel. Okay. Review and approve orders, bills, and warrants. Take a motion.
Motion to approve orders, bills, and warrants.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve or review and approve all orders, bills, and warrants. Voice vote. All those in favor would say aye. Sue?
Susan, I.
Ben, aye.
Back on the right.
Peter, aye.
Stefan, aye.
Motion passes. Other business, Ben?
No.
Tom?
Nothing.
We don't have any. Okay. There will be a short executive session. Sue, do you have any other business?
No, I don't have any other.
Okay. We'll have a short executive session for a legal matter, and there will be no comment
Okay.
after. Okay?
Yeah.
Should only take us 5 minutes. I'm not gonna guarantee that, but just a matter of passing out some information, so. Take a motion to, entertain a motion to go into executive session for a legal matter.
I'll make the motion to enter into an executive session to discuss a legal matter where premature general knowledge to place the municipality at a substantial disadvantage. And I'm not sure if I need to read those statute numbers or.
You can, you guys often do, I don't think you have
Yeah,
to.
I don't have to have it in front of me, but.
Where are you inviting?
And inviting in the municipal manager, the town manager, and the town finance officer / HR.
Second.
Okay, so we're gonna need, I don't think we'll need two, we're gonna need one. No, we do need two. Number 11.
Number 11.
Pending litigation.
Okay, I'll make.
Was there a second on that?
Well, yeah, Ben made the second to, we're gonna just need a second. All those in favor for executive session for a legal matter, would say aye, voice vote please.
Susan, aye.
Van, aye.
Right down the line.
Peter, aye.
Stefan, aye.
Okay, we're gonna have a second motion and we're in.
Okay, I'll make the motion that the select board enter into an executive session to discuss pending or probable civil litigation or prosecution to which the public body is or may be a party of, and to invite into that session the finance / HR, town of Rockingham individual, Shannon, and also the municipal manager, town manager, Wendy, under the provisions of Title I, Section 313A1 of the Vermont statute.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, for a legal matter discussion, voice vote, all those in favor would say aye.
Susan, aye.
Van, aye.
Right down the line.
Peter, aye.
Stefan, aye.
We are in executive session.